Alright, in theory, I have gone live. Okay, I think I have gone live. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I've already got 2 people in the chat. Wow. Alright. Hello everyone. Let's see. I've got a little bit of an internet connectivity issue, it looks like here. So please let me know in the chat if the video is skipping or if it's halting for any reason. But yeah, hello. Yes, I am still alive. I am still around. I'm sure as we go through this live stream, I will talk a bit about what has been going on for the past, what, two years now? And some of what the plans are for the future. Okay, it says I'm skipping a bit. So let's see what I can do about that. It's possible that I will need to restart the stream and maybe move to a slightly different bit rate. But yeah, I'll keep it on the chat. If I am skipping, I'll fix that. So let's see. Yes, I am going to be making some mail here. I am mostly just going to be closing rings. So this will be the most experimental live stream ever, really, because it's going to be quite dull and boring what you're seeing on the screen. But it is what I can do in a short notice. So that's how my life is right now. Is if I can do something like this, it's So there I go. See, I'm seeing that I'm getting some stream issues, stream health issues. So I'm going to halt the stream and change the bit rate just a bit, okay? Give me a moment. Okay, hopefully I am actually back now, and everyone can see me just fine and hear me just fine. Actually, you know what? I think... Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I may have fixed the connectivity issue, but we will keep an eye on it. All right, so let's see. In the chat, everyone can hear me. Have you had the baby? Yes. That is, I will say, an understatement. So we've had 2 children at this point. That's the plan, is to stop at 2. But we had our first kid, which was the reason that I quit posting to the channel. It was a time issue. Obviously, children, especially young children, take up a lot of time. I'm still seeing some skipping here, it looks like. That's unfortunate. So yeah, just let me know if I am actually still having connectivity issues. So had the first kid, and then we were very lucky in that we were able to have a second one, which is actually, it really honestly extended the reason for me being away from YouTube for so long. And it's not to say that I'm going to be back necessarily. Not necessarily going to be back full force. Okay, still Still skipping. All right, give me a moment. I'm going to see what I can do to fix this. Okay, so here's hoping that audio is fixed, video stream is fixed. I'm apparently having to stream at the lowest possible bit rate, which means I just might be having ISP issues in that case. Hopefully this is better. Hopefully you can deal with it. So yeah, we've had two kids at this point. They are easily the best part of life. I have zero regrets. I love the community I built around my channel, but you guys don't hold a candle to my kids. Um, so yeah, it is really really great having kids. People always tell you that it's like some sort of cultish thing. Parents want to tell you need to become a parent as well. If you can handle it, if you are in a good place to have kids, it's a great thing. It is exhausting. I feel like I haven't slept in 2 years. Um, but I can do this for you real quick. Um, so here are my two kids right here. And so the one at the top is my oldest. She is Gwendolyn. And then the one at the bottom, the newborn, is Evangeline. And so we call them Gwen and Eva. So they are wonderful, wonderful little girls. So yeah, super happy to be there in my life. Wouldn't give it up. Um, so yeah, in thinking about coming back to the YouTube world, it's going to probably start pretty small. I definitely have a lot of announcements there. We'll get to it in a bit. Reading the chat. Got any more swords since I've been gone, or has it been spent on the kids? Um, yeah, yes and no. I do have newer swords. I definitely stopped buying swords shortly after my daughter was born. There are a few that I have that I purchased well before I knew the channel was going to go on hiatus. And so we are definitely at the point where, you know, I have plenty. But actually, the only swords that I actually have out anymore, you know, I'll actually move this webcam, are the ones that are on my wall. Those are the only ones. My armory is now completely packed away for the time being. So I am purposefully kind of holding off on having a bunch of weapons around. Um, but I have gotten some new ones. Don't know when it will be that I'll be getting around to doing reviews, like proper reviews at this point. You know, I'm. This is actually me kind of, you know, dipping my feet in the shallow end of the pool, being the analogy. Just trying to see what I can do with the time that I have. You know, I'm actually have a baby monitor here right next to me right now that I am checking periodically, in case that I have a kid wake up, and then I have to at least pause on the stream a bit. So you know, I'm still very much at the whims of two very young children. But this is at least the ability for a little while to, honestly, for me to decompress. That's why I'm making chainmail. This is something that, I say chainmail, sorry. I know medieval people really mail, right? This is something I can do that is kind of mindless and allows me to read chats and talk to people, and also to just decompress a bit and relax. So it's a little bit meditative. So that's the reason I'm doing rings right now. Very basic things. As far as the YouTube world goes, I will say sorry, I'm reading the chat. Little Dan says it's honestly great to see me back, and that it'd be great to see me review some medieval movies that have been out since I've been away. Okay, you want the blunt honesty? I have not seen a medieval themed movie in a long time. There's actually a couple reasons for that, and it's probably tied to the same reasons that I put the channel on the hiatus, and why coming back into the YouTube world is going to be fairly brief or fairly slow, certainly at first. I didn't talk a lot about it at the time when I kind of put the community posts up and talked to people, but and letting people know that it was going on hiatus for a bit. There's a YouTube channel that I always really liked, and I don't know, you may know about it. It's MCQ Bushcraft. He's a very interesting individual, does a lot of outdoor stuff, camping, all that type of thing. And he actually backed away from his channel, and it got to be a very big channel. He backed away from it a good bit because the way he put it was, when you love doing something, you love something, you pour a lot of effort into it. But when it begins to eat up more and more of your time, and you feel committed to it, it becomes kind of like a job, and then a lot of your passion can begin to go away. So this is my roundabout way of answering the medieval movies question. I haven't seen a lot of them because, honestly, medieval themed things have actually, I've struggled with them a bit, because a lot of medieval themed things, because this channel, became work. And watching a movie, for me, watching a film, is supposed to be about relaxing and entertaining myself and enjoying it. And when instead you're sitting there watching a movie thinking, well, what is my critique of this? It's no longer watching it for enjoyment. And so that was actually true of a lot of things. Medieval based video games, I would start them up, and I just go, I don't want to play this, because I feel like I should be reviewing it, right? And it's actually the same thing in many ways with swords. And part of my personality is that I like to mix things up, and if I feel like I'm saying the same things over and over and over again, I end up being in a situation where I feel like I'm not doing anything new, and that's very, very bad. So, wow, I can't believe we have 16 viewers already. I honestly, because I didn't announce this stream and I just kind of threw it out there, I kind of expected it to be very slow for people to trickle in. Yes, everyone, I'm still alive. I am back, but only to a very minor extent. Don't be expecting to see content anytime soon in terms of review videos or anything. That stuff will come at some point. I do still plan on doing some of that, but it will be few and far between. My output will be certainly nowhere near where it was before I had kids. I do not do YouTube as a job. There is no way that it could bring in ever enough money to make it worth being the primary livelihood. So everything takes precedent over the channel right now. I have a 9 to 5 that I have to work. I have kids. But I do have some really interesting things potentially on the horizon. Things I'm very excited about, but I won't talk about. So that's going to be the teaser. But I am looking forward to it. I do think that things like this, live streams, might become a more common content piece for me, just as a way of being able to get content out there, but also not feeling that I have to produce anything. You can see in my setup behind me, I produce things. I sit there and do video work for this channel and other channels, actually, which I'll talk about in a moment. And that takes time, because I want to do it right, and I spend time editing, and I spend time with getting the right shots, and spending time making what I hope is high quality content. May not always be, but I don't want it to just be me standing in front of a camera talking. I don't want it to be low effort. I've always had a mild resistance to clickbait type videos, and actually have now moved almost completely away from clickbait videos, I think. Another reason why I don't do a lot of like movie reviews, I've never done sword fight review type videos. I don't really want to talk about, oh goodness, well, I just don't want to talk about Game of Thrones at all. But um, I don't want to sit there and talk about the fight that happened in a show and why it's historically inaccurate. Um, it's just one of those things where, it's not really what I want to do. It's not really what I wanted my focus, my channel to be. And in a lot of ways, I never really wanted the focus of my channel to be just doing sword reviews, but man, it really just kind of became that for a while. And I really enjoyed doing them because it let me spend time doing camera work, which I really enjoy. Getting nice macro shots of the details of the swords and whatnot. Treebeard says, thank you for showing off Kingdom Come Deliverance back in the day. Yeah, no problem. I didn't get to play that game a lot. I did a live stream of that, right? I think I live streamed it, and I was awful at it. But that was partially because I didn't have time to actually understand the controls while also trying to live stream. It's a little bit hard to multitask in that scenario. I don't think I have what it takes to become a video game live streamer. Give me a second to see if I can't get the video on my baby monitor back, because it seems to have gone away. Reset that. I set that over here. It makes some noise, so I was trying to avoid having baby monitor noise coming over the stream. But yeah, that game was. I still think that game is really done a lot. It's very impressive for what's basically an indie title. But I will say that I didn't get to play a lot of it, and it was a Kickstarter. I was a backer for it, obviously, because I had the backer rewards, and I loved what they were doing. I loved everything about what they were doing. I just wish I had more time. Let's see, maybe a video on medieval aesthetics or history would be cool. Even some recommendations. I will say recommendation style videos, non-review coverage of medieval products, again, swords, whatever, will, I think, become a thing more so than it was before, just so I don't have to spend a lot of time doing reviews, again, producing content. Let's see. Fallen Student says, oh, I already read that. Oh, wow. Hey there, Tyndon. Medieval Dynasty's on sale. You should check it out. All right. I will check it out. I'll tell you, not a lot of time for video games, though. Philosophy, whatever interests me. Yeah. I don't know that people want to hear my philosophies. I'm sure my philosophical things are probably not as interesting as you'd probably hope it would be. So I'll actually talk a little bit about some of the other things. Let's see. Yes, Treebeard said I did a live stream, and he dropped 200 hours into it. Wow, that's an impressive amount. That's Skyrim levels of hours into it, and that's certainly time I do not have. So good on you. So let me actually talk a little bit about some of the other things that I'm doing or have been doing. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of channel content. And as I mentioned, when you're just doing medieval content all the time, as it were, medieval themed or medieval focused in some way, it begins to become a job. It becomes very samey. And I know that for you guys as a YouTube audience, a lot of times you're just happy to see a new video, but it becomes the primary thing that I'm doing a lot of times. And so when the structure doesn't change very much, when the flavor of the content doesn't change very much, it's difficult. So that's why I did some random movie reviews right before the hiatus. I did some movie reviews. I reviewed like A Quiet Place. Not not medieval at all. Very good movie, but not medieval at all. And I had played with the idea, actually, of taking the Medieval Review channel and rebranding it. And there'd be a couple reasons to do that. One of the reasons would be I would theoretically maintain subscriber base. That means that no one has to go resubscribe if I did like a new channel. However, the downside of that is I feel like that is treating the subscribers poorly. I know that as a subscriber to a type of channel, maybe I'm subscribed to the channel for one specific type of content, and if that channel completely changes its content and the way it operates, I'd probably unsubscribe, honestly. And there are people who are maybe only interested in the medieval content, so I decided that I wasn't going to do that. What that means is I would then spin up a new channel, and the new channel would basically cover the things that are more, I would say, more in line with what YouTube was originally meant to be as a streaming platform, hence the U in the YouTube title, which is just me doing videos about things that interest me, maybe beyond the medieval. Because I do have a lot of interest beyond medieval content, or medieval-based themed content, whatever. I will say that I have started this new channel, and I wanted to get a couple of videos out for it before I kind of announced it, and at least announced it on this channel. Mostly because I wanted people to understand what they might be getting into if they were going to see stuff on another channel. Wow, my webcam there is really going nuts with its focus. And I've changed the name of this channel like a ton of times, which is kind of silly. But let me, I'm going to go pull it up real quick. And I will show you the channel. And then you can make a decision whether or not this is something that you would want to subscribe to. It's still very early on. So let's stop that from doing the focusing. That's going to drive me absolutely insane. All right. So this is the new channel, as it were. Primarily in terms of actual content, it's these first 3 videos. And this is a cyber deck that I built. If you don't know what a cyber deck is, go look into it. It's pretty interesting stuff. One of the many things that I do outside of YouTube and historical European martial arts and collecting of swords is a lot of I don't know, tech stuff, maker space type things. You know, I've been doing 3D printing for a long time now. I like to dabble in electronics and a lot of those types of things, and so I now have posted a couple of kind of deep dive videos on a cyber deck that I built. And so you know, it's a very different type of content than would normally be on this channel, and I think that it's appropriate to have it, you know, in its own space, in its own channel. Pardon me. So that is why I didn't post videos like this in this channel. I will maintain this channel at some point. More videos will come, even well-produced ones, I hope. But it will be, again, few and far between, and it will still be focused on medieval things. And I will, anything that isn't medieval will go to this other channel. So that's the plan there. Let's see. So yeah, Fallen Student is saying that he's lost some interest in the more material aspects of medieval culture and is more interested in things like philosophy and theology. Theology can be really interesting. I'm big on theology. And he says, honestly, I think it's a subject a lot of medieval themed channels miss. Yeah, I think it's because it's difficult content. I mean, honestly, I think it's what it comes down to. YouTube, I think, does foster mildly lower effort content sometimes in order to produce or get a lot of videos out there. And people who, especially who are career YouTubers, I think that's what one of the things they do is they just kind of push for getting more content out. I think that's actually less true now. At least I hope it's a little less true. I know that for a while there was a lot of rewarding of people producing like daily videos. And if you're doing daily videos, even if you are trying to make really high quality content, it's difficult. It takes a team of people to make that happen and still be relatively high quality. It's the reason that some of my favorite channels are channels that post at best once a week, and most of the time it could even go into multiple weeks without them posting. I think the primary example I use for that is Red Letter Media. They are probably my absolute favorite YouTube channel. Their content is so slow to come out, and they do work with a team of people, but they take time with their content, and they do other things, obviously. But I really enjoy their content, and it's well produced and it's fun, but it is not a daily thing. So, but yeah, so here is my other channel. I've got it up for a while now. I will actually maybe even go grab the link for this channel, because obviously it doesn't have a channel name yet. Not enough subscribers actually to have a channel name yet. I'll post this in the chat so that you can see that's the other channel. Feel free to go watch the videos. It's a little bit hard to tell exactly where that channel is going to go in terms of video content, because it's not going to be that type of content all the time. It will be other things. I am more than likely going to just do a random video talking about something that interests me. It will become, I think, a good repository for a lot of the random projects I have, because I do have a lot of random projects that I do. I've always, I think one of my biggest problems is I've always got more things to do than I have time, more hobbies than time. And that was even true when I was full on really working on the Medieval Review channel all the time. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff in my opinion, but it's I think a bit more of a dry topic when you get into details of wiring, electronics, etc. But it is meant to be informative and give people an idea of something that maybe they could do. That is the purpose of the videos that are up there right now. And I am, I don't know, I'm going to see what else I end up doing on that channel. But it's going to be very much more like the everything else content. And to that end, I actually expect it to get more videos. When I do have time to make videos, it will be more videos on that channel probably than this one, at least for a little while. Again, just so I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. So that's kind of the direction a lot of this is going to be going. And, you know, I definitely apologize if people expected me to come back full force at some point and just be right back there producing nearly weekly content of reviews and whatnot. But realistically, that's not going to be the case, and I'm just going to do my best to provide interesting things when I feel it's appropriate. Appropriate use of my time, especially, and also, I will note again, because I am not a career YouTuber, and this is a hobby. I'm going to treat it much more like a hobby than I did before. When I originally started building the channel, when I realized I could build a channel, and I was pushing, first 100 or 100 subscribers, then 1,000, then 10,000, going all the way up to where it is now, which is over 30,000, which still blows my mind that it ever got to that point. I was very much chasing after that subscriber count, trying to build the channel. And that's not a hobby at that point. So it's going to go back to being a bit of a hobby channel. But yes, it is one of those things where I will have a lot less time to spend on it anyway. So, all right. So with all that said, I have basically said everything I could even think to say. So we have 19 people in the channel right now. So, all right, guys. What do you got for me? You got questions? Got thoughts? What would you like to hear about? Is Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to close rings in silence. I don't know. I'm not a great live streamer, I'm sure. I also love the delay in live streams. I say that and I have to wait 30 seconds before it hits anyone's ears. Yes, fallen student family is very important. It is easily the most important thing. I heard a really interesting study that was done. They asked random people, what is the most important thing in your life? Is it making money, gaining fame, or family? And pretty much everyone said family. And they also asked the respondents, what is the most important thing in other people's life, do you believe? Like, what do you believe people think is important? And everyone basically answered money and fame. But the interesting thing about the study was everyone almost universally answered family is the most important thing. Everyone was talking about family, and no one was talking about money and fame. So we got this really interesting cultural divide, as it were, where we have people thinking that the world wants to go after the money and fame, and certainly many people do. But then at the end of the day, everyone is really actually more concerned with family a lot of the time. So that's actually a really, in my opinion, hopeful thing. I think chasing after money and fame is doomed to failure for most people, and the people that get it probably regret it at the end of their lives. Let's see, Tyndon, what am I making? I don't know yet, but I think I'm probably going to make a larger version of this thing over here. So, let's see, let me get this stick out of here. I had this on a wooden dowel, and it broke on me, so I'm going to have to get a better dowel at some point. Let's see if I can get this off. It's going to take forever because these rings are on here so tightly. Just break this and take it off in chunks. That'll work. So most of the time when I'm making chainmail, I'm making inlay banners because it's the more interesting thing to do. Did I ever talk about inlays and chainmail? Again, I say chainmail. I apologize for people who get really antsy about that. Have I ever talked about mail and my making of different types of inlays and whatnot on my channel? I honestly don't even know if I ever did that. So chat, tell me, because if not, I'll talk a bit about it. But yeah, what am I making? Right now, I'm not making anything, just closing rings. I did make this a while back, and I kind of want to make a larger version of it. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's a blackout American flag. If you don't know what a blackout flag is, it's basically like all shades of black instead of the standard red, white, and blue. I made that just as a random thing, and then I decided that maybe I want to make a larger one that I could hang around my house somewhere. So that's maybe what I might make, but right now I'm just closing rings as a therapeutic use of time. What form of mail armor am I making? I'm not making mail armor. Certainly not what I'm making here right now. Yeah, Paul Balog says, if you want, we can talk about how everyone's doing, and it's all good since the Rona. Yeah, I mean, my family's great. Coronavirus is an interesting thing, and I don't want to get too detailed on that. I think everyone is probably sick and tired of talking about it these days, but for me, it didn't have that much of an impact because I was going to be spending most of my time at home with a new baby anyway. Working from home was actually an option for me, so that's a good thing. It means I spend more time with family. It's definitely tough to be, trying to be shut away a good bit, but where I live, there's still a lot of options of things to do, and I do think it's great that if you're going to look on the bright side of a pandemic where people are quarantining and locking down, I will say that I really like that people have refound the love for spending time outdoors, getting exercise, picking up hobbies. I think my biggest fear would have been everyone would have spent way too much time just zoning out on social media. Certainly, I guess there are people who maybe have spent the time just to play video games. But I've definitely seen something of a resurgence among people I know of spending more time in the real world, which is interesting. And I think that's probably a good thing. It gives us a greater appreciation for life. Let's see. Redhead Jedi says he's turning his room into a medieval style study room right now. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I'd actually love to see pictures of that. Um, feel free. I have an email address for Medieval Review. Shoot me some pictures. I'd love to see what a medieval style study room ends up looking like. I built a library in my house, which is also something I don't think I talked a lot about on my channel. So, but I wanted to make it kind of a 1930s aesthetic. So it's fun to make really make your living space a little bit more interesting. I've always enjoyed non-modern things, obviously, but the 1930s and mostly 1930s, maybe some a little bit of 1920s, 1940s, and if you go all the way into the 50s, and you're kind of doing Art Deco, maybe a little bit. But I've always loved the aesthetic, the furniture aesthetic, the design aesthetic, a lot of rich wood colors. It's definitely influences a lot of how I like to decorate my house. And doing a library up proper, is great. So I have like a leather wingback chair with an ottoman and a side table to put your pipe on, and an antique kind of cast bronze lamp that is an overhang lamp as like a reading area. We have these nice, rich wooden bookshelves that we had installed in place that fully take up the walls. And it's nice just to have, it's a nice space to be in. Have a little buffet in the corner where you put your bottles of whiskey and your old style radio and that type of thing. So that's where actually one of my favorite places to spend time when I can spend time completely relaxing, but it's rare. So. So Samba said that me and Schologrim convinced him to get his first Albion sword. He's gotten 2 since I've been away. Man. Yeah, it's funny. Albion swords are maybe one of my least favorite to review, because what are you going to say about them? Like, here's one of the most amazing swords you could possibly own. So I talk a little bit about the design and the things I appreciate about it, but when it's one of the best swords you can get, what as a reviewer, what can I say? It's like telling you that pizza is good. Yes, pizza is good. Like there are some pizzas that are better than others, but pizza is good. Can't say a lot, and so it's going back to that aspect, right? It's hard to review something when it's got very few flaws, if any. Paul Balog is responding, saying that media seeks out drama and views. Don't mind. Personally, he's getting infuriated with what's shown on TV and just cut his cable contract. Yeah, I haven't had cable TV in forever. I haven't had TV in forever. Almost a decade, easily, since I have just stopped having television. YouTube, Amazon Prime, Netflix, all those streaming services give me what I want if I want it. Still try to spend time reading books. Lost hobby there for some reason. But I do love a good enthralling show or movie, certainly. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about Chainmail, I guess. Let me spend some time seeing if I can't find some photographs. When did I move into this new house? Because that was when I took some of the initial photographs of one of my biggest projects. So let me see if I can find that. So let me think. I've been making mail since 2000 and wow. One maybe. So in the chat, I don't know, Tyndon, are you still there? Because you used to make that with me. Was it really that long ago? Because I honestly don't remember. But it's been a long time, well over a decade, if not almost approaching two. And I have made a lot of stuff in my time. Um, Inlays are probably my favorite because it's varied and you get a lot of interesting variety in what you're making with it. So yeah, there's a good picture. Because I wanted to kind of show the one that I have hanging up in my house right now. And then I need to go to Imgur, that old sharing site, to see if I can't find the other pictures that I have kind of laying around. Yeah, sign in. Tell how often I go to this site now. But yeah, so I'll pull up some pictures here and you can enjoy them. So let me just do this. Let me pull up this photo. So hopefully you can see this photograph here while I'm working on getting some other ones. So this was right after I moved into the house that we're currently living in. And one of the things I really appreciate is I actually had a space for this banner that's on the wall. So this banner is what I call my Chainmail heraldry banner, and it is a 4.5 foot by 7.5 foot, I believe, is the dimensions. Banner. It have mail. It's I think over. Trying to remember how many rings. I feel like it's somewhere like 300,000 rings. And it's aluminum. It's anodized aluminum for the coloration. But yeah, it's a very, very, very big thing, to say the least. So let's see. Where is... How do I even go find these things? I might be better off looking up just photos I have on my computer. I used to maintain my photos better in terms of being able to share them and show them. So let's see. Pictures. Chainmail. Alright. Alright, we're going to go for a blast to the past here, I think. Let's see if that works. Great. Alright. So let me see about getting a version of this stream that can share this screen. And sorry, I'm going to have to modify on the fly here, I think. Alright. It didn't like that for some reason. Interesting. Well, I've now learned something about OBS as a broadcasting thing, is it does not like showing you Google or Microsoft Photos. So that's interesting. So give me a moment. I'm going to have to figure out a better way of doing this. As I'm trying to do it, I'll read some of what people are saying. He remembers when Matt Easton used to review his product when his channel was small. Now some of his videos are in the millions of views. Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this point, a lot of my peers in the YouTube space have really exploded. Matt has gotten a lot more. Skullgrim has always been one of the largest. Shad from Shadiversity definitely got a lot of views. And of all the people who kind of built up a channel, I'm really glad that he was able to. He was in a situation where That YouTube channel was just a godsend for a lot of stuff for him. And so couldn't happen to a nicer guy for him to be able to build a pretty big channel. I'm getting some slowdown, apparently, so I'm going to see what's going on there, but let's see here. I'm going to go back to Imager and see if I cannot figure out how in the world I'm supposed to show my albums. They've changed all this, which is really annoying. Here we go. I found it. I think. Boy, they have made this awful. I am not a fan. All right, there we go. So let me pull this in. So this is going to take a while to load, but hopefully you can see. Now I'm having to reorient all my windows so I can read the chat as well. So bear with me here. All right. So let's see. Someone said, "Is that mail?" Yeah, it's crazy. So this is a picture of me standing next to it. You can actually see the detailing a little bit there. I have some other photos that are a little bit closer up. But you can also see the relative size to me standing next to it. This is actually a Hallberg I made a long time ago. Horseman's Hallberg, so it goes really long down to past the knees. And I did a 45-degree seam on it. I probably wouldn't do that in the future. Someone said, imagine weeks of work for this one. So yeah, let me actually go back. Let me talk a bit about this banner. Let me find a better picture of the banner. Let me just go back to this one. Yes, that would be an understatement when you say weeks of work. It was 6 months of working nearly a second job at the time. I would go to work, and when I got home at night, I would basically put on Star Trek. So in the chat is one of my good friends. We would watch Star Trek together. And when I say Star Trek, I don't mean the original series. I mean the entire corpus of Star Trek, all of it, every show, every episode. We would watch television, and I would sit in a recliner and just make mail, close rings, weave, whatever. I did that till it was time to go to bed, which was usually about midnight for me. I would get up in the morning. I might make a little bit in the morning, and I'd go to work. And so it was basically 8 hours of work every day on top of 8 hours of standard work. And it's, I think it's about $2,000 worth of rings in terms of material. I'm trying to remember if that's correct. That's probably a little bit high. It's probably more like $1,600. I had to save up a while to save up enough money to actually make this thing. Because I didn't want to anodize all these rings myself or anything. So I actually purchased it all through the Ring Lord. Yeah, it was a lot of work. And if I went to a party, someone was throwing like a Super Bowl party, I had a little bag, a little like single strap, kind of European style backpack that I would take with me and hang out with people, and I'd make mail the entire time. Like, it's all I did for about 6 months. And this is not the first inlay project I ever did. I'll show you some other ones. But yeah, this was certainly far and away the largest I ever did. And it was such a burnout that when I completed this, I don't think I touched mail for almost 3 years past that. I didn't even care to do it anymore. So this is definitely my magnum opus when it comes to chainmail. So let's see. The Scholar General says, the collection is large as it was a couple years ago. What is my favorite sword? My favorite sword hasn't changed. It's still the Albion Gallo Glass. I really do like my Ringek, and I really like my Liechtenauer sword. The Liechtenauer is probably one of my favorites because I handle it a lot because it's a blunt. I don't know about Shad's collab with Kyle Hill. Let's see. What does the hand holding the crescent moon symbolize? Yes, so let's talk about that. So this is my personal heraldry banner. So let's get it in view. So there's a couple things here. One is a long time ago, back when I basically would inject liquid Lord of the Rings and Tolkien content into my veins. I learned how to read Anglo-Saxon runes. And so combine that with one of the sayings that me and friends of mine would say, like in our role-playing games and playing Ultima Online back in the day, that type of thing. We would we would say strength and honor, mostly pulling from the film Gladiator. So at the top here you have strength, and at the bottom you have honor. So STR is pretty easy to see. The M looking one is an E. And then this little double helix thing is an ing, an NG sound. So it's NG, so strength. And then the last symbol is called a thorn, and that has the TH sound. So strength. So I'm taking the English word, and I'm leaving it English. I'm not trying to translate to something. And just doing, Anglo-Saxon rune characters. The bottom, H, this is an O, N-O-U-R, using the proper spelling of honor, as it were. The eagle, let me pull up. So I'm getting more notification that I'm having not so smooth streaming, so let me know if that's a problem. There's a great painting that I know I've talked about before. Pardon me. Called the Accolade. Pull that over here for a moment. So if you've ever seen this painting, close that. It's a great painting. Edmund Blair Leighton, one of the great painters in my opinion. And there's a lot of history behind this painting, but you can see the eagle here is also kind of relatively in line mildly with an Italian heraldry eagle. I do have Italian heritage, so I chose that eagle to kind of be my background. The crescent moon is representative of the second-born son. That does happen to appear in the Accolade painting, but I am also the second-born of my family, so hence the crescent moon. And then the disembodied hand bleeding blood, the story behind that is a little bit more complex, but that is actually the story of, and sorry, I'm trying to find my chat is gone away. There it is. The hand is from the Riley family. So Riley clan, Irish clan from County Cavan. I have learned to say that correctly because so many people from Ireland correct me on that when I was saying it wrong. But Cavan, County Cavan in Ireland. It's where the Riley family comes from. All the different spellings. And the story behind the hand kind of mixes up a bit, but the broad brushstrokes is there was some competition to win the prize of the land, which, depending on the telling of the story, could be any number of things. But the way I like to tell it is basically the king wanted to find the right person to rule his kingdom and marry his daughter, the princess. And so the way he decided to do this was he decided to call the greatest warriors from around his kingdom to the castle, and they would have a great competition, and it would be, tournaments and all this stuff. And it concluded with a grueling race, which was a swim across the moat. And the way the rules of the competition were stated was basically everyone who fought the tournaments and won, and you had this last kind of group of knights and warriors who were going to make the last final effort to try to win the hand of the princess and win the rights to rule the kingdom in the future. They lined up at the moat, and the idea was basically they're all going to swim across. And the way it was worded by the people running the tournament basically said, the first man to place his hand on the wall of the castle will win the hand of the princess and rule the kingdom. And so all these warriors started stripping off their armor and jumping into the moat and started to swim. It's a really wide moat. And one of the men stood back and contemplated for a moment, and then he took his sword out and he cut off his hand, and he picked it up off the ground and he threw it as hard as he could, and it smacked against the castle wall and fell into the water. And because his hand was placed on the wall first, he won. That's the general story. And so the Riley clan, the Riley family emblem is exactly this. It's just a disembodied hand with a couple of drops of blood coming out of it. But that's the story behind it. So what I have nods to my Celtic heritage, nods to the color theme of the County Cavan kilt, which is a lot of the green and gold and red and black. I have the logo, or the hand, which represents the family. I have the eagle, which represents the Italian heritage. I have the crescent moon, which represents the second born son aspect. I have the strength and honor motto, and then I just kind of did this Celtic knotwork framing of it just to kind of make it look nice. So that's the story behind the whole banner, basically. Someone says motivated to make one of these with Byzantine influence. Just note, it's a big project. Start with some smaller ones first. It's tough to make something that big. I have the same thing on my YouTube cover. Okay. I was unaware of that, but okay. It's possible. Alright, some other things I made. I made this little Reddit alien. This was it's a little dragon. I made that for a gift exchange on Reddit, for the medieval gift exchange. I made a chainmail Jane cap from the show Firefly. One of the characters has his mother knit him a cap, and I saw at like a big convention someone had made a chainmail cap, and they were selling it for an obscene amount, like $400, and it was nowhere near the quality of what I made. I was like, well, I can make that better for cheaper, so I did. I've made little dice bags with like Triforces on them. I've made keychains. Again, here's you can see some of the detail here of the inlay of the larger banner. So this is the hand. Each ring is, of course, individually anodized. This isn't like I made a big banner and painted it. Each ring is individual color. I made a turbine logo for the company Turbine. They used to be the owners of Lord of the Rings Online, one of my favorite games that I played a lot back in the day. And I made them this banner, and I actually went and visited their offices in... yes, I see. Sorry, the chat, he clarified the disembodied hand on logo. You can see that on the live stream right now. Yes, that is the inspiration of that hand, correct. Sorry, I apologize for not having realized that. The Turbine company logo, basically, I took it to their offices. They were based in a small town outside of Boston, and I went to Boston and enjoyed Boston a bit, and then went and visited. I kind of quasi knew someone who worked for them and met up with them. Here's another Horseman's Hauberk. This one is steel. So the first one I showed you was aluminum as a costume grade. This one was steel, whole lot heavier. Again, you can see some of the work that I did, the 45-degree seam. I have a coif that I was making, and I had a better version of it somewhere. I ended up lining it with a cloth to make it fit better and be more comfortable. But I want it to be one that sat, that could sit back, which means that it didn't have a chin strap. And I always kind of intended to go back and build in a chin strap for it. I never did. Yeah, more pictures of all this stuff. Earrings. These were gifts for these were for my mother. I made this one for my mother as well. I've made little armband things and other jewelry. Anything. I made a little Google banner. I've done talks on it. I have a chainmail tie that I did in dragon scale, um, with a little clasp closure, so it sits slightly differently, and you can see it. I wore it as part of a suit one time. Dice bags. I learned to juggle. I made this little what is it called? Macala or Moncala or something. The gladiatorial armband thing. I'm not real happy with how it ended up. It could have been done better, but yeah. Here's a friend of mine wearing an entire suit of armor, basically, that we put together as a costume. Again, here's me wearing some stuff. That's basically most of my mail work. So I'll go back to the desktop view and start closing rings again. Adam is asking me how life is. I hope it's been awesome. Life could not be better. Life is amazing for me. You know, two young girls that rule my life, but I do not mind it. You know, I love every minute of it, except for the minutes that I'm not sleeping. I do appreciate my sleep, but yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing having kids. So let's see. All right. So what else do we want to talk about? I'm going to close out some of these things. Here, here's a great picture of. Let's see. Oh dear, I managed to break everything apparently. That's interesting how I managed to do that. This is another great picture of my daughter. So, have to show off my kids, right? I'm not going to do it for too long. Yeah. I'm really, really glad to be back. I was never really gone. I would actually, whenever someone would comment on a video of mine, I would always respond, or at least would try to. But obviously, that's a lot less these days. Um, what are my thoughts on the upcoming Lord of the Rings Amazon series? I will reserve judgment. I am. I'm a bit of a Tolkien purist. I really, really liked the Lord of the Rings series Peter Jackson did. I really, really hated the Hobbit movies. I was okay with the changes that occurred in the Lord of the Rings films. I was okay with them. I understood the need for removal of some things and the changing of some things. I understood it, and I believe that in watching, especially when you watch the behind the scenes things that Peter Jackson talked through his decision making, it made sense from like a narrative filmmaking perspective. The Hobbit things need to die in a fire. They are the worst films. I do not understand how they were that bad. The first one, if it had been, if the other ones had been better, the first one would have been more forgivable. They added a lot, and there was a lot of like, okay, well, they've added some stuff, so we'll see where it goes. But it went nowhere good. They just completely failed to really capture the most important aspects of the story. And it really just completely failed to even be anywhere close to the books, in my opinion, or to the book, The Hobbit. So I'm a bit of a Tolkien purist, and if they make a terrible TV show of it, I'm not going to be interested, quite honestly. And if they try to turn Lord of the Rings into Game of Thrones, I'm really not going to be interested. I think I was always pretty tepid on Game of Thrones, just in general. I watched the show for I think the first 4 or 5 seasons, off and on, honestly. And boy, am I really glad that I kind of quit watching it when I did. Because especially as the last season, everyone really complained about the last season. It seems like that show kind of went the same direction that the show Lost did, where the first bit was really good, and then as time went on, they kind of didn't know where they were going to go with it and failed to make it interesting or good, and created too many plot threads that didn't go anywhere, that type of thing. Fallen Student says he is rewatching Sword Dynamics video series. It's a shame Peter Johnson's books are impossible to find. I know. It's awful they're impossible to find. Tynan says Hobbit cartoon for life. That is correct. Rankin and Bass. When me and my friends used to do extended edition screenings, which meant we would start at like 6 a.m. and go till midnight watching the extended editions, we would actually preface them. Back in the day, you'd go to a movie theater, and before your primary film was shown, you had a cartoon play, right? I'm saying this as if I was alive when they were doing that back in the 40s and 50s. But, it was actually kind of a thing for a while that, cartoon played before the feature film. So we would do that. We would watch the Rankin and Bass Hobbit film, the cartoon version. Enjoy it a lot, and then we'd watch the extended editions. And we did that a couple of years running. That's tough to do, though. Thoughts on C.S. Lewis and his Narnia series of books? One of the best series of books ever written, in my opinion. Certainly for children books. I could rant for probably an hour straight about the concept of the Narnia books, the Chronicles of Narnia books, being an analogy for aspects of Christianity. Because C.S. Lewis himself said they were not. And yet people still to this day say that it's an analogy. But Lewis very, very specifically said that the Chronicles of Narnia are like basically an alternative history fiction. And so when Aslan is representative of the personage of Jesus Christ, it's not because it's an analogy. It's because in C.S. Lewis's mind, Aslan was in fact that person. He was Jesus, just in a different world. And that he took forms that were appropriate to the worlds that he was saving. That was the concept. And so why in the world people call that an analogy, I will never understand. And I hear it all the time, and it bothers me to no end. It is grammatically imprecise because the word analogy has very specific meaning. And it's also imprecise as to the author's intent as stated by the author. So that always bothers me. But great series of books. And also, if you're going to read those books, never read them in the new published order. So, I don't know why they do this. Publishers publish the box set of Chronicles of Narnia, and the first book in the series is The Magician's Nephew. And I hate that so much, because you were not supposed to read that one first. You were supposed to read that one second to last. So the proper order of the books, chronologically published, is Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What was the second one? Not Prince Caspian. Oh my goodness, I've just completely failed being a Narnia nerd here. Oh man, there's two Caspian ones. Oh no, it is Prince Caspian. So it's Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Silver Chair, Magician, A Horse and His Boy, Magician's Nephew, Last Battle. That's the proper order. If you read it in that order, it works. If you read it in the other order, it ruins the series. You should never read Magician's Nephew first. It is meant to be a retrospective book that explains a lot of stuff before the very last book. So, anyway, how long will I be riveting? What am I making? Well, I'm not riveting because these are not riveted. These are butted mail pieces. You can see right here. It's just butted. Oh, come on, camera, focus. You can do it. No, it can't. Oh, they're butted mail. I'll be doing it as long as I can, I guess. I mean, I'm going to go to bed here at some point because I am a father of young children. But as long as I kind of feel like it, and as long as my daughter doesn't wake up. Never really got into Game of Thrones. Not really a fan of the author. I don't blame you there. One of my favorite things. I love this thing so much that I saved it. So let me see if I can go find it. I think it's in my miscellaneous pictures folder because I love it so much. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to read this statement. I think it's amazing. So, if you ever have to know what my thoughts are on George R. R. Martin, this encapsulates it perfectly. And I quote from, as you always quote, the anonymous person. So, quoting Anonymous, George R. R. Martin avoided Vietnam by being granted conscientious objector status in 1970. J.R.R. Tolkien left his ivory tower when called and served in the monstrous hell that was the Battle of the Somme. World War I trench warfare being a strong contender for the dubious title of most horrific condition of war ever endured by man. The Somme had 60,000 British casualties in its first day alone. Flooded trenches, often at or below sea level, prone to having, I'll say, feces, body parts, and blood washing around the soldier's trench coat. This is not fanciful. Survivors wrote of it. Artillery shells might or might not end you. You had no say in the matter. Rats ate the bodies in no man's land, but Tolkien came out of it writing a tale of nobility and grandeur, while Martin, who avoided it, has written of squalor. End quote. I have always really liked that summation, and I think it's very true. I've not been a big fan of Martin's writing style, just in and of itself. I think that he had some interesting ideas, and I think that his concept of kind of making a Wars of the Roses type fantasy story is an interesting concept, but it is kind of true. It's a very bleak, dour, and honestly, ultimately uninteresting to me kind of fiction. And look, some people love it. I'm not going to tell people what they love or hate. It's just not really for me. So yeah. Let's see. Treebeard said, I don't know how those three movies out of The Hobbit, or they got that out of a single book, and they never got into Game of Thrones. And he never got into Game of Thrones. Yeah. I'll tell you how they got three movies made out of The Hobbit. They got the budget to do so. The studios wanted to pump more money into it, and they wanted to get more money out of it. And that is studio interference that ends up making a bad product in films. The original vision of the Hobbit movies was going to be, what's his name? See, I'm forgetting all the names. This is how I know I'm getting tired. Maker of Pan's Labyrinth and Devil's Backbone and all that good stuff. Del Toro, right? What's his first name? Guillermo del Toro. I'm going to now apologize to Guillermo del Toro because he is actually one of my favorite directors. But his name always escapes me for some reason. Del Toro was originally going to be the one who's going to direct the Hobbit films, and it was originally going to be 2 Hobbit films. And I almost guarantee you that where they would have ended the first film in the 2 would have been the dwarves in the barrels going down the river. That's where it would have ended. And it would have picked up when they reached Lake Town, and it would have been the story of Smaug and the Battle of Five Armies. Then he backed out because the studios were dragging their feet. I think they really wanted Peter Jackson to do it. Peter Jackson eventually went in and became the director again. And everyone got really excited, including me, about that. Like, I was actually pretty happy. I would have liked to have seen the Del Toro vision. But, Jackson made really good films. But there was just such a desire to pander to certain interest groups, shall we say. There was a desire to make as many movies as possible, to make as much money as possible. And the end result was just not good. Let's see. Fun fact, did you know that chainmail was first used by the Celts? Yes. In one of my now infamous videos, I actually talk a bit about some of the origins of mail. People didn't like that I was as generic as I was in those videos. Sometimes I think I'm pedantic, but you know what? YouTube commenters can be a lot more pedantic than I am. Um, Thoughts on the theory that Lord of the Rings was a warning about technocracy? Um, Maybe in a roundabout way, but I don't. I think it's probably inaccurate to say that it's meant to be a warning. It's certainly a theme of it. I'm not a fan of people who kind of outright say that Tolkien was writing these stories to make a point. I don't think he was. He was a very kind of headspacey type person with the stories he was writing. And I think the themes that he brought from the war and themes of, nature over industry and all that, I think some of that can play into it, but I don't think that was ever meant to be the point. And whether or not he was actually even cognizant that he was doing that is, I think, certainly open for debate. Now, he has a lot of letters, and I have not read all of his letters, but most of what I have read of his stuff that talks about his thought process is really not meant to be like a broad warning. And very few people back then were ever really writing books strictly to be like a point making story. Not to say they didn't exist, right? There are certainly plenty of, and here's the proper use of the word analogy, but analogous novels that were written, right? That were meant to make a point. But I do not believe that was ever Tolkien's express purpose. I think he wanted to invent a world, and he did so in a way that people fell in love with. And that's really where it ended, I think, for him. Personal opinion. And then Fallen Student also said that what he's seen in the show Game of Thrones just seems like a fetishization of tragedy. Yeah, maybe to an extent. Keep in mind, again, Martin was theoretically trying to bring in some of the Wars of the Roses stuff, and tell you what, the Wars of the Roses is nothing but tragedy in a lot of it. Certainly, depending what view you're on, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of bad things going on. So I kind of understand it. The show certainly, I think, likes to play up some extremes, but honestly, from what I read of the books, not too dissimilar. Let's see. I always wondered if you use good quality steel and overlap the butted parts would be good enough as protection. Overlap the butted parts. I'm not sure what you mean there, Adam, but I will say this. You could protect against cuts with steel butted, just not thrusts. Even riveted mail can break if there's like an S-stock or a triangular blade that's meant to kind of work its way through rings. But yeah, no, butted mail I would never use for armor. As far as I'm concerned, it's always costume grade. I have done, like I did, but I've never actually made riveted mail, mostly because I don't have time for that. And I don't particularly go around wearing armor outside of just as costume pieces. So even within historical European martial arts, I have not spent a lot of time doing armor fighting. I tend to do, I'm not doing harness fectin. I'm doing kind of standard dual long sword, which is unarmored for the most part. So let's see. Treebeard says Hobbit was written as a children's book, if I remember right. You are correct. The slightly darker themes of Lord of the Rings are, certainly a little bit different from The Hobbit. Tolkien wrote a lot of what he wrote for, kind of focused on his children. So his children grew up hearing a lot of these stories, and the way they developed over time was based on the stories that he was telling them. It's funny, when you go read The Hobbit, it's very lighthearted. Children these days don't think they'd be able to read it as well. Children don't have a very high lexicon score these days. But yeah, The Hobbit is still one of the best books ever written, in my opinion. It's actually my favorite Tolkien book. I actually prefer The Hobbit over the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I like the more lighthearted aspect. I like Bilbo Baggins as a protagonist. Um, I've always enjoyed it a lot more. Uh, but I mean, it's only barely beating out Lord of the Rings, right? I mean, they're just fantastic books, and so as well are all the other fictional published novelizations that Tolkien wrote. Um, the ones that his son Christopher Tolkien got published, um, Children of Hurin, those types of things are really good books. Matthew Jensen, how's it going, man? You were one of the last people I talked to before I went on hiatus with my channel. How many new swords? You got me. I don't know. I lost count. I'll be honest. I can't keep track anymore. At least 3 or 4, I think, new swords. But I stopped buying them when I had kids. Just didn't have time to go shopping for them, and I packed a lot of them away. Right behind me is where my armory used to be, and all that is kind of packed away now. One day it'll make a return as a proper armory. I'm thinking that I'll eventually buy a like an outbuilding or something, get it kind of air conditioned and climate controlled, and move my armory over there, as well as maybe making it into a bit of a studio. Move out my primary hobbies and things like this into a better space, as it were. But that's going to be years down the road if that ever happens. So they're going to stay in storage for a while, and I'm doing my best to keep them in as good as quality conditions as I can while they're in storage. So it can be hard to do. Let's see. Yep. And by the way, everyone, if you aren't subscribed to Matt's channel, you need to go do it. There's a guy who has a lot of good passion and talks a lot about swords. So if you ever need a good sword talk, go to him. Fallen Student says he's definitely reading The Hobbit to his kids. Yeah, I cannot wait for the day I get to read books to my kids. Like I said, we built a library. One of the reasons we built a library in my house was specifically we wanted to prioritize books over things like television. I grew up with books. My father, being an avid reader, reads 3 to 4 books a week. Has since he was a teenager. So he has read, I think we calculated it at one time, it's an obscene amount of books that he reads. I can't keep up with that. However, I do like reading myself. I don't get a lot of time for it, but I do enjoy it. And I want to ingrain it in my children because I've seen some of the effects of too much television. And when I grew up reading books, but I also grew up with the television, and I grew up with video games. And don't get me wrong, I love both of those things, but they are things that need to be done within moderation. And I think a lot of modern parenting has moved towards making these devices be babysitters, and I'm not a big fan of that. So my wife and I had a long conversation about how we wanted to raise our kids, and that's one of the things we talked about was prioritizing that. So we wanted to have a library so that was a place we'd go eventually as a family, and we could read stuff. But man, the day I can read bedtime stories to my little girls, that's all I'm ever going to want to do. I guarantee you. Actually, one of the things I've been wanting to do, and I've played around with the concept, but I never actually implemented it. So, but I've actually wanted to start a YouTube book club. And the way it would work in theory is I would choose a book and I would give people 2 weeks to get a copy of the book. And then I would do daily content. It'd either be daily content, or if we did weekly, it would take too long. But the idea would be daily content. Really lo-fi, either done as a streaming, live stream, or done in a different way, but just talk about the book and then publish the videos about the conversation that happens. Maybe even do it as like a call-in show or something. And people talk about what they really enjoyed about the chapter they just read, or where they think the book is going, and do a proper book club, but do it on YouTube. I still think that's going to happen. Now, which channel it happens on, for people who are not just now joining, there is another channel that I just started, which I will, again, I think I'll post in the chat right now, so people can go and check it out if they want. Um, but yeah, a book club. I think it'd be a great idea. um, Man cave? Question mark. Matt says. This is kind of my man cave. This is actually just my den, my living area. You're actually seeing the view that you never saw before. Like the direction I'm facing right now is the windows and where my armory was. Now it's my computer desk. When we started having kids, we had to move things around. My office became a nursery, main living area, and armory became an office slash armory slash general space. Now it's more of just a general man cave space. I have like an arcade cabinet over here to my right. Have a bunch of action figures and toys and things on a shelf over here to my left. Things I enjoy. So yeah, it's kind of a man cave, but it's more like a family space cave. Let's see. Someone said that's a good idea, like what Matt Easton did. What did Matt Easton do? I'm actually not clear. Talking about the book idea? The book club? Because if he did, I'd love to go see that. Let's see. Matt says he started reading Brandon Sanderson's work. How about books, not movie? How are the books, not moves? I'm not clear on what you're saying there, Matt. Maybe reword that. Currently working on Way of Kings. Have I read it? I've read some of Brandon Sanderson's work. I've not read The Way of Kings. But yes, I recognize his brilliance as a writer. I will go ahead and say that. Let's see. Well, yeah, sorry, Matt, to clarify, because you just said movies, films, but you said, how are the books not movies? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. So, Spracer says, I'm a history nerd, so I got a lot of books, and I'm not watching TV. I mean, honestly, television has its place. I enjoy... So, I got into doing video work because I wanted to get into filmmaking. Watch the Lord of the Rings films back in 2001. It was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I didn't know movies could be like this. I want to do this. And I spent a lot of time researching camera equipment, buying software way back in the day. And I played around with it. I used to do CG swords, so I could do like stabbing people with a fake sword type thing. I did a lot of that type of stuff. Never really published any of it, but I did that type of thing. And then eventually I applied the skills that I learned into the YouTube channel. But yeah, that's how I got into the video work. So, and in my opinion, a proper film, a really good film, one that is done not just to make money, but is done as an artistic expression, is perhaps one of the best forms of collaborative artistic expression that's out there, period. Because you're bringing in writers, you're bringing in filmmakers, you're bringing in musicians and actors, you're bringing in sculptors who are going to sculpt things, you're bringing in seamstresses and tailors to make costumes. You're bringing in all of these interesting skill sets and people, and you're collaborating on this amazing effort. Only films, and to some extent television shows, really do that. Not many other... I mean, you certainly have plays or musicals, Broadway or something like that, where a lot of that's done. But I think that nearly every single type of art form that is in existence can have a place in film. And I don't think there's many domains that you can say that about. Let's see. Starius Prime says, books and reading are a passion my parents gave me at a very young age. Always read for a while on my lunch break at work, and it's the happiest moment I'll ever have on any given day. Yeah, there's nothing better than a good book. Let's see. Evan says, hey, good to see you again. Hello, Evan. It's good to be seen. Elijah Schaefer says, what are your favorite genres of books to read? Any interest in philosophy? Boethius, Marcus Aurelius, Homer, etc. I don't do a lot of philosophy books. I'm aware and I'm acquainted with philosophical concepts, I will say, and I have dabbled in some high-level philosophical stuff from time to time. my own personal philosophy is fairly well baked into me as a person now. I don't care a lot about what people have to say about it anymore. Certainly, a lot of the more archaic philosophers are worth understanding and reading. Modern ones, not so much. So I don't do a lot of that. Um, Matt says Sanderson's work is pretty fun. But Elijah, to answer your question about my favorite genre, that's tough, man. I'm going to just kind of generally say fiction. While I love Tolkien, certainly as an author, one of my favorite authors is actually Michael Crichton. And I love every single one of his books I will preface it, every single one of his books that were published while he was alive. The books published after his death are lacking a bit in many cases, but all of his books I've really, really always loved. And I like fiction in general. And it doesn't have to be fantasy, it doesn't have to be medieval themed, just fiction in general. I also really, really enjoy nonfiction, though. I like reading books on certain pieces of history or conceptual pieces. I read scientific based books, a lot of that type of thing. I think anything is really open for me. If you can convince me that I'll be interested in reading it, I'll probably read it. I have read some pretty dry topic books before, though, like not quite textbook level, but things that are pretty heavy reads. Oh, YouTube. Hopefully you guys are getting a fairly decent stream quality here. I'm still getting notifications periodically that it's having trouble, and I'm just wondering if the ingest server for YouTube is having issues or if my ISP is having issues. All right, let's see. No one else is saying anything. Wow, I think I've actually read the end of the chat. Okay, Dark Sailor says genre categories are arbitrary anyway. On one hand, I can understand why someone would favor certain themes for their fiction or fictional settings. On the other hand, it's a bit silly to cling to, yeah. I will say that I'm not, so I'm going to create a new term here maybe. I like a good high fantasy. Lord of the Rings, where you're doing a lot of world building. I do like that. I am not a fan of the kind of low fantasy where it's like our modern world, but it's got fantastic elements. Someone's probably going to kill me here, but like the Harry Potter books, they're fine. They're not anything real special. Things like the Harry Potter books, they're fine. They're not anything real special. If you're going to do a fictional kind of fantastic story written in the kind of real world setting, I think you have to have a really, really good idea in order to make it really, really good. And it's not to say that like Harry Potter wasn't actually a fairly decent idea. It's just that the mixing of that kind of midline fantasy where it's like a little bit too much fantasy but still not its own creation or its own world. I'm just not a big fan of that in general. Let's see. Spracer says, yes, of course, but I watch movies on my projector every now and then, but I do not like to sit on stuff and just watch TV and getting fed what they want. Yeah, so great thing to pick up if you're going to sit down and watch TV. Make mail. This is how I have watched TV or things like this for over a decade now. I'm almost always doing something while watching TV. I am almost never just sitting there watching. The only time I can ever really think of that I am purely watching something for the sake of watching it is if I've gone to a movie theater. I have not read The Elements of Euclid, Fallen Student. I don't know what that is, but I will look it up. That's called modern fantasy, says Dark Sailor. Okay, or contemporary fantasy. Either way. Okay, well, maybe I mixed up the terms there, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the idea of contemporary fantasy. I don't know what it is. It just never really jives with me. I think that I would prefer, like, not fantasy based in a contemporary world, but rather either kind of a more sci-fi aspect to it, more so than fantasy. So, technology being a little bit better than it is in the real world. So things like certain types of spy thriller books where they have the newest fancy gadget that doesn't really exist. That type of thing I'm tend to be better with. Evan here says he made a full suit of button mail while watching TV when he was a kid. Yep, it's a great way to spend your time. Really is. And it's soothing. It is a mindless, repetitive task. So it's a good, almost meditative thing to do, in my opinion. The Elizabeth Moon Paxenarian series is one of the best series, if you ask me. I've never read it, so I'll have to go check it out. I have a lot of books to read, unfortunately. More books than I have time, I think. But I always take recommendations. You read that Peter Jackson is supposed to direct a World of Warcraft reboot. I'm assuming it's a film, not a game reboot. Either way, I watched that Warcraft. I reviewed that Warcraft film, and I think it was Warner Brothers copyright claimed it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Warcraft needs to just kind of stay video games, I think. The way I see it, the regular laws of physics are very magical, so I really feel like I'm living in a contemporary fantasy world. Yeah. Well, think about it. If you were to just go back 100 years, the technology we have now would seem like absolute magic to people. Even technically savvy people would just be amazed. Am I going to make some fiberglass armor? Funny you should say that. I actually tried making some fiberglass armor one time. Let me pull this up. Let me go find this picture for you. Oh, let's see. I have to do a search here. I exported a 3D model from Lord of the Rings Online way back in the day. And I turned it into a pepakura, which is a foldable paper model, basically. And then I took that and I slathered it with the fiberglass resin to kind of make a shell. And then I started layering fiberglass in it. That was as far as I ever got before I quit doing it. I was going to take it as far as to actually sand it down and like etch it in and paint it and all that. Never really got around to it, but I do have a picture of it. So let's see. Hey, Bruno Golnick in Brazil. Good night, sir. It always amazes me that someone in Brazil would be watching me, honestly. That's crazy. But I appreciate it. I have friends from Brazil and friends in Brazil. That's my kid. Let me get this in the right tab. Here we go. And this was a fiberglass helmet thing that I made. And it was full size and wearable. Here it is on a mannequin. But the armor in Lord of the Rings Online was called the Worker's Helm. I don't know why it was called that, but it's this kind of dwarf mask looking piece. It's all like hammered metal down to this like little spiky beard thing. And then if a dwarf was wearing it, his beard would actually stick out down the bottom here. And across the top was a crown. So I turned that into a pepakura, and I folded it, and I fiberglassed it up a bit. And it was a fun project, but I never really took the time I needed to actually finish it up, which is the story of my life with most projects I have, quite honestly. I spend way too much time on projects that never go anywhere, certainly. Yeah, someone says if it's thick enough, it's bullet resistant. Yeah, I don't think it would have been that thick. I would have also loved to have made some Mjolnir armor from Halo. That would be another thing. And one of the primary ways people used to make that was, again, pepakura. They would fold it out of paper and then make it out of fiberglass. I just, of all the things I would spend my time doing, at the end of the day, I've got other things I want to do. So, yeah, lots of projects like that I just never finish. All right, let's see. All right. We are still at like 19 viewers, so we've had some people come and go. But hopefully people are enjoying the stream. I know it's something kind of minor, but this is just right now it's a one-off. But I hope to be able to do more of something like this over time. All right, let's see what you guys have for me. New sword from Albion coming out is called the Warwick, also Super Cressy, aka the Super Cressy. They will offer hilt options, ring or scent stopper, pommel, straight or curved crossguard. Looks amazing. I'll have to go look that up real quick. I have a cat named Warwick, by the way. He's a good cat most of the time. Let's look up this Albion sword. Yeah, I forgot they had a new website design. It's really quite something. I'm going to assume, because you said it's Cressy, it's probably single-handed. Ooh, Bayou. I don't know if I've ever seen that one. How long has that been on their website? Warwick. Alright, I'm going to see if I can't just do... Oh, I can't find it. Do you have a link by any chance? Facebook post. Okay. If you can shoot me a link, that would be great. I'll try to find it, but I may not be able to easily. Alright, let's see. Spracer says that he's enjoying it. I appreciate it. I know this is, streaming is a interesting medium. I'm more inclined these days to do some streaming stuff like this because it is so low effort from the standpoint of production time spent. But I know it's also, it can be mildly interesting, but not always perfectly interesting. I'm also probably going to start making live streams, or at least doing the live stream version of video posts. When I publish a video, I'm going to, in the future, try to make it a video that is published with me in a chat room that I can talk to people while they're watching it, on kind of like a live release. So closing out some of these tabs I got here. Alright. Now I feel like I need to look up my cat Warwick. Find a picture of him real quick. He's a good cat. Again, most of the time. Wow, I don't have many pictures outside of him as a kitten. That's kind of weird. Here's an adult version. This is my cat Warwick. We just call him Wick most of the time. But yeah, he's a very fluffy ginger cat. Alright. Alright. Well, I've managed to talk for almost 2 hours here. What else we got going on? Any other thoughts from people out there in the great wider world? Where's everybody from who's on the chat right now? I'm curious. It's pretty late here stateside, so I have to imagine most people are stateside right now. Arcane Hunter asked, "Do I listen to music?" Yes. Don't most people? I do listen to music. Uh, I would say what my musical tastes are, but honestly, I pretty much like everything. So I've got a very eclectic music taste. So it's yeah, I'm always open to hear new things, and I like a lot of stuff. So let's see, Northern Michigan, Ohio, awesome. More Ohio. Massachusetts? Is that what MA is? I don't remember. I think that's what MA is, right? Oregon. Stay safe out in Oregon. I hope the fires aren't anywhere near you. I don't know how that's going right now, but I know that's been going on. So stay safe. I love Oregon, though. That is a beautiful state. South Dakota. Awesome. Yeah, this is always, to me, um, one of the most amazing things about having done a YouTube channel is just the exposure. Um, I very rarely get outside of my own little bubble of where I live and the people that I tend to spend time with, and then I do a YouTube channel, and suddenly, I get views from people all over the world and people who know me from all over the world, and have even had people meet me in person, uh, see me on the street, and recognize me, and that's mind blowing. That type of thing is mind blowing, and it's still a very small channel, 30,000 subscribers, and in YouTube world is still small potatoes, and yet to have people recognize me is really just crazy. So, meme maker Gildemir says, "I found you through your reviews on Purple Heart Practice Fader without the shilts. Have your thoughts changed?" Um, Purple Heart's practice faders are fine. They're affordable. Um, I prefer steel over synthetic almost always. Um, and still to this day, if I'm not mistaken, my biggest criticism, and this isn't necessarily just Purple Heart, this is pretty much all of the synthetic faders that are out there that are worth having, is that the dimensions of the cross are inverted with the size of the blade. So in an actual sword, the blade is much thinner than the crossguard, like in terms of depth, narrowness. So the crossguard is always thicker, and the blade is always thinner than the cross. And that's the polar opposite, because now you have this giant synthetic blade with bars coming out the side of the blade to represent the cross. And the reason that's not ideal is the concepts of binding and winding and how you might intentionally put someone's blade into your cross to wind around or do something is completely broken. Your fingers are going to get smashed. It's just not going to work like it should, because these concepts work when the blade is thinner than the cross. So that's my primary thought that I'm pretty sure I had said when I had done a review on them. But they are still, I think to this day, my recommended synthetic fader recommendation. Not really a fader, right? Because it's a fader is a specific design, but the synthetic longsword. Yeah. Oh, talking about the metal fader. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't think my thoughts have really changed much on that. They are lower quality than what you can get with other makers, certainly, but they're affordable, relatively affordable, and so yeah, if it's metal, yeah, it's fine. I always say, when you're practicing with people, make sure you have similar practice weapons, because different manufacturers make different or use different types of metal. You might end up really damaging or dinging up someone else's sword if you're not using something somewhat similar. Let's see. Spracer said he bought the Suintaka Viking sword after reviewed it. He's happy with it. Going to do a new leather scabbard on it. He's from Sweden. Awesome. Again, amazing that there's someone from Sweden who watches me. That blows my mind. Yeah, I really like the Suintaka sword. I don't have it out right now. But yeah, it's I like the story behind it too. It's actually one of the things that always made me buy swords was the swords that had a story behind it. Jumpy Killer QX, do I practice any martial arts? I currently no. I guess would be my answer. I am not currently very active in the historical European martial arts arena, as it were. But when I have the time and when I do, that is a martial art, in my opinion. It is a proper martial art. If you can learn how to do it, it's usable. I have taken other martial arts. I used to do Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu way back in the day. So I have a mild understanding of martial principles. I am not anywhere close to like an MMA fighter, right? I have actually considered going to an MMA gym. We actually have one that's driving distance from where I live, and I would love to kind of learn more modern martial arts, as it were, and just kind of more general grappling and fighting. You can learn some of that in historical European martial arts, but yeah. All right, let's actually clean this up a bit. Put this. So I'll explain in a bit my cup arrangement here. These cups represent different states of rings. So this cup here is black rings that are closed, so they're already closed. This is a cup of black rings that are not closed. This is a cup of these, what are called black ice, but they're kind of a dark silver, that are not closed. And then I have a cup that are closed. I've now closed all of these, so I'm going to put them in the cup that is of the closed rings. And this is just kind of how I organize. I kind of assembly line my mail making here. Let's just do it this way. Stick it under the desk and just... This way I don't have to think too hard about what I'm doing. So if I'm just closing rings, I'm doing nothing but closing rings. If I'm weaving, you know, I'm just weaving, right? Like, it's kind of how I do it. I make a big bucket load of closed rings before I do anything else, though. Because once I get in the groove, I don't want to run out of materials. Nicholas Leclerc says, it's been years. Yes, it has. It has been years. The last time I posted a video to my channel would have been early or mid, like summer of 2018. It was about 2 months after we found out we were pregnant with my first kid, and I knew that it was time for me to take a bit of a break. The reason I took a break when I did, which was still 6 months before my daughter was born, because she was born in January of 2019. The reason I took the break that I did is we actually were doing some pretty major renovation work to my house, and we were doing a lot to get it ready for having a family. So I needed to take the time to prep. So that's actually why I stopped as early as I did in 2018. And I had a lot of plans for the channel too, and I still do. But they're just kind of, they're not gone. They're just on hold most of the time. I should look into Greco-Roman wrestling. No. Nicholas Leclerc says he's about to have his first next week. Congratulations. It is easily the best decision, to have kids is one of the best things in the world. Absolutely, it is the best. It is exhausting. It is It puts everything in your life on hold, but it is absolutely worth it. I never regret my kids ever. It's just the best thing. And I'll tell you, the day they smile at you, the first smile they give you, all the bad stuff melts away. It really does. A good smile from your firstborn is going to tell you everything you need to know about being a parent. It really does. Here's going to be my my parental advice to you, Nicholas. And it's advice that I was given by a friend. And it's not really advice, but keep this in mind. If it's the hardest thing that you've like, if it's the hardest thing all the time, if it's so difficult, you're doing it wrong. It should never be that difficult all the time. If it's super easy, you're doing it wrong. It's going to be somewhere in between. You're going to have some of the worst nights of your life. You really will. You're going to have some of just like complete failures and complete mess ups and clusters and all that good stuff, right? But at the end of the day, you're going to get some things right. You're going to get some things wrong. But as long as it's not either the hardest thing you've ever done or the easiest thing you've ever done, you're probably going to be okay. All right, where are we at, Pete? Look at this. We are at 24 concurrent viewers now. That's absolutely amazing. I love, I could have announced this. I will probably announce future live streams, obviously. But yeah, I wanted this one to just kind of be put it out there and see what happens. Probably much to the chagrin of the European audience, I'm sure. So I apologize to them. Shad, my man, how is it going, sir? Let's just talk about you earlier in the stream. I hope all is going well with you. I've been watching your channel, and holy crap, dude, you have built a large subscriber base very quickly. I am impressed, sir. I had a knighting poster that I converted to a picture. What was the name of that poster? And congrats to being a parent. I think you're actually confusing two things there, Spray Sword. I have a painting, a replica painting of the Accolade, which is... Let me go find it again. I had it. So I'll show you my paintings. So this painting is the Accolade. I have a replica of it. The way they did it was they did a really high quality print, and then an artist went back with clear acrylic paint and replicated brushstrokes. It was purchased through Design Toscano, I think, or one of those kind of higher end companies, as it were. So I have this one. The one that was a like a poster, it was like a paper print that I had is the meeting on the turret stairs, which is this one. Here we go. Pull this over. This one. This is my favorite painting of all time. So Frederick Burton, who is an Irish painter, painted this, and it's an amazing piece of art for a couple of reasons. One is it's a bright, vibrant painting, and it's all watercolor, which is like, if you know anything about how art is made, watercolor is like the one medium you shouldn't use for something like this. But Burton, that's what he did. That was one of his primary styles. And I got the pleasure of seeing this painting in person at the Museum of Art in Dublin. One of my bucket list items was to see this painting. And I got to do that, I think it was the year, it was 2018. It was really great, though. So... Well, Shad, I am glad that you are here, sir. I hope I hope everything is just going, super well for you. I'm so out of touch really with a lot of the channels, all the peers. It's odd. One of the odd things is I keep track of everyone, but I actually have consumed less and less content on YouTube over the past couple of years. So um, yeah, try to keep my things. But yeah, I've been dropping in every once in a while, seeing how Schola Gladiatoria is doing, how Matt's doing. I see how Shad is doing. Metatron, Matt Jensen. Those are basically the four channels that are kind of, as Shad just said in the chat, kind of the OG from my standpoint. I'll be honest, I've never been much of a Schologrim viewer, oddly enough, even though he's one of the biggest. And I Post Swords is got a channel as well that I saw that he started. I like his stuff too. So, all right, Spracer, I'm glad I was able to give you the info you needed. Greetings from Norway, says Pripy Monty Poppycock. All right, well, again, Norway, that's insane. What are you doing awake at this time of the morning in Norway? Oh man, that's crazy. I don't know why you'd be awake that at that time. I can tell you right now, it's 10 o'clock at night my time. So what is that? 100 hours. Um, and yeah, I'm beginning to feel tired now, which is how I normally feel. And I usually go. I'm on first watch with the baby, so likely I won't go to bed till midnight. But yeah, 10 o'clock here right now. And we've now crossed the 2 hour mark with this live stream. That's I'm surprised I've kept in that long. Yeah, it's only 4 a.m. Yeah, oh goodness. I have a brother who lives in the Netherlands, and so I'm very very conscious of the time zone of Europe in general, really, I guess. But when I want to talk to him, I have to be really cognizant of what time it is. No, Jumpy Killer QX says Greco-Roman wrestling is pretty fun. It's really important base for combat. No, it absolutely is. Someone who's done that type of wrestling has a real leg up in historical European martial arts like longsword fighting and grappling in that because I mean, I'm sure a lot of these martial arts came to the same conclusions, maybe through different routes. But martial arts are pretty well and truly consistent, even across cultures. There's only so many ways you can grapple. There's only so many ways you can swing a sword, and they're all going to be very similar at the end of the day. And certainly, that type of wrestling is absolutely a base foundational thing for any combat. The reason that type of stuff really matters for like MMA fighters, because as soon as you go down to the mat, if you don't know how to do that, you're done. But I don't have a strong interest in just focusing on grappling, and if I did, it would probably be more something like either judo or Krav Maga. I want it to be slightly more practical if I was going to spend time doing it. Meme Maker says any S stocks I'm in the market, can't find any. Yeah, good luck. Let me know if you find one for real. I can tell you the reason I don't have one really is because there isn't a productionized version. And that might sound like a bit of a cop out, but keep in mind that a lot of what goes into decision making for me for buying a sword, at least back in the day, was whether or not it was marketable for my channel, right? Me reviewing a custom made sword doesn't make a lot of sense. So reviewing a productionized sword is better. But S stocks are just not something that people make. I don't know why. I haven't looked recently. Maybe there's one out there. But yeah, right now, for whatever reason, people aren't making S-Talks, so I don't have any answers for you there. All right. Wow, I finally reached the end of the chat again. Isn't that awesome? I'm going to try to play around with streaming more in the future. Different times, certainly. Like I said, I have a 9 to 5, so it's kind of hard for me to do any time of the day. But weekends, like Saturday, works. The only problem is now is my schedule is also tied to children. So when they're up early in the morning, I'm not exactly going to be doing a live stream. So, want to try something new? Try Aikido. Learn to fight with your straws and hit them like you're seeing a katana. Been watching some of your videos recently. Good to see you back, even if temporary. Yeah, I've been a little bit retrospective on my channel as of late. I've been kind of looking at the quality of them, and I really laugh. I don't know if most people know this. My channel, the very first review video, was actually meant to be much more of a joke video. And what I found is that my delivery was awful. I guess it's the way I talk, and my sarcasm is not as drenched in sarcasm when I'm being sarcastic. But my first video was the Landsknecht giant sword from Ritter Steel, and it was never meant to be a very serious video, and yet it kind of came off as being serious. Like when I was reading the description that that Ritter Steel had for the product, I was reading it in what I thought was in a kind of a joking voice, like making fun of it. I don't think it came off that way, and then the reception of it was oddly decent for it being what I thought was a joke video. So then my follow-up video was more serious, and that then kind of kicked off the channel, as it were. But yeah, I'm pretty sure my first video was that Ritter Steel Landsknecht giant great sword. Awful sword. I mean, it's not even really an actual sword. It barely meets what I would call the specifications of quote-unquote battle ready, as it were. It's a tempered steel. It's flexible. It's made sturdy enough, but it's so heavy. It's ridiculous. I always kind of wanted to make kind of more funny videos, but I guess I'm just not a very comedic person at the end of the day. Yeah. No, I think if I were to spend some time outside of historical European martial arts doing a different martial art, I would go for a much more practical one. Something like, again, Jiu-Jitsu or Krav Maga or something like that. Yeah, it's one of those things that, I'm actually a very practical person. Which is odd, because if you look at the stuff I have around me most of the time, it's not practical. I have giant shelves full of action figures to my left, and I have, a bunch of swords to my right. I have an arcade cabinet over here. These are not practical things. None of them are practical. But at the end of the day, like most of how I operate tends to be off of practicality. And so I do like to synergize my hobbies to be practical. For those who aren't aware, who are joining much later in the stream, I did talk about it already. I have another channel that I've started that is content that isn't medieval related. I've gotten some videos up there. I wanted to have a couple of videos up there before I started pointing people to it. Mostly because I wanted subscribers to this channel to be able to make a choice as to whether or not they wanted to subscribe to the new channel. I recognize that what I might be doing on a different channel is really maybe not in line with what people who are looking at my medieval review channel are interested in. So, but here I'm putting it in the chat again. This is my new channel. Feel free to go check out what I got there. I've basically got 3 actual videos up right now. They're talking about a cyber deck, which you can actually see over my shoulder right there. again, practical. Like that thing is actually designed, and I built it to be practical in a very impractical situation. Keep in mind, but it is meant to be practical. Let's see. Uh, Fiore is practical, honest. A lot of what you learn in any martial art, including historical European, is has its practical aspects. What is impractical about learning those martial arts is no one is walking around with swords on their hips or, going and having duels for their honor anymore. At least not in the States. I don't know what you guys in Europe are doing. For those of you who are awake in Europe at 4 a.m., but in general, it's just not practical, right? The practical person in me is the person that has guns. The impractical person in me is the person that has swords. I view swords as a very impractical thing. I view them as a very valuable and interesting thing. Historical significance, martial arts significance, artistic significance. I love all those aspects of it, but they are not practical today in the modern world, and I recognize that. Anthony says Cold Steel stuff has gotten better over the years. I'll take your word for it. I have definitely bought some Cold Steel stuff. One reason that Cold Steel stuff may have gotten better is that Windlass is now their primary blade manufacturer. Now, they still do it to the specifications that Cold Steel has, but honestly, Cold Steel a long time ago, to my knowledge, was making their own stuff, and it was not as good. Windlass at least understands to an extent how to make decent swords, as an example. So they're getting slightly better quality for that reason. I will always say Cold Steel really, really stumbled on a very good longsword design with their Italian longsword. Their Italian longsword is a great longsword, and I really do think they did that by mistake. I don't think it was intentional, in my opinion. Boxing, in my case, would be practical. A self-defense situation, you stab out your fingers when you flick and you jab. Boxing is a mildly practical. Actually, boxing has some impractical aspects. So this is where I would argue that if you want pure practicality in a fighting sport, you need to be looking at MMA, because boxing ties concepts of points and scoring and some elements of that, but it also ties in restrictions. In combat, there's no restrictions. In MMA, they have very few restrictions at the end of the day. Gregory Stevens says, I think the idea of preserving the history of swords and how to use them is practical, if not for combat, then for keeping historical application. Same sort of idea behind Yado. Okay, yes. I think history is incredibly important. So do not misunderstand me. When I'm saying that it's not practical, I'm not saying it's not valuable. There's two very different statements. I view them as extremely valuable. I think there is value in just about anything. But practical is going to be the question of, if you had to choose one thing over the other in order to survive life, what would you choose? I, as a person who lives in the United States, I do not go out into this world carrying swords around for my self-defense, because that is not practical. But all the historical significance, all the beauty, and the artistry that goes into making swords, the technical aspects of making swords, the technical aspects of using swords and the combat with them, all very valuable. And aspects of those maybe could even be practical. But in general, owning nearly 80 swords like I do, it's not a practical thing to own. There's no need for that. There really isn't. No need for that. Let's see. Spracer says, I use them when we do historical reenactments, when we do medieval tournaments. Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're practical for that. But, again, practicality, historical reenactments and tournaments, they're not practical things. Practical things are things that keep you alive, in my opinion. That's what I mean when I say practical. I agree as much, and I'd love to carry my Munich sword by my side. I mean, I'd love to carry a sword by my side because it would make me look very cool. I think, right? In that what it'd make you look cool. It wouldn't make you look dumb at all. No, not in the modern world. 80 swords, it's a dream come true, is what Meme Maker says. I believe that is accurate. I actually have a count that I did one time. Let me see if I can pull that up. Keep in mind this count is old, so it's probably increased since then. All right. Yeah, it's probably closer to 80 now. When I wrote the original thing, it was 60. And that was that was probably about a year before probably 2 years before I took the hiatus. Because I actually counted everything I had when I moved from my old house to my new house. And in that process, I had to move all these swords, which I'll tell you, that's a moving day experience. Let me tell you. Of the items that are in my armory collection, I have, according to this now old document, I had 130 unique pieces, 90 of which were considered functional, and 60 of which were swords. So, of those 130, 90 were functional, and of those 90 functional, 60 were swords. That's what's that's what's going to happen when you have a channel that your primary thing is to review swords. You end up buying a lot of them, and I started buying and collecting swords when I was in ninth grade of high school. And back then I wasn't buying real swords, so I don't really count them real swords, but I started that process. And when I got a real job and I started getting real paychecks and I had money burning a hole in my pocket, that's where it went, was to buy real swords. So yeah. Wow, a bunch of things hit the chat all at once, so let me see. Picked up anything especially cool for my absence? I did buy a couple of really cool things. I got really lucky, and I mean really lucky. Windlass, for a long time, or rather a long time ago, sold a sword umbrella that was a full length, hook and umbrella. Kind of like the Avengers, and I'm talking about the old 1960s serial, not the Marvel thing, but a sword in the umbrella, and they have not made that for like over a decade, and I think it was last year, something like that. I happened to have gone into their storefront, and they had one for sale, so I picked it up. I've always wanted that. I also picked up a it's from Cass Iberia. I'm trying to remember. It was under their Apocalypse line, whatever that was. They kind of did like a Cold Steel zombie tools type sword thing. I bought their arming sword, their broadsword, which is not really either. It's not really an arming sword or broadsword. It's barely even a sword. It's very, very small. But it's black coloration, and it's got a much more modern aesthetic, and it comes in a plasticine plastic kind of a molly system sheath. It's kind of meant to be modern zombie survival type sword, but I just wanted to get it just for the heck of it, so I picked that up. I think that's of interest. I have so many in storage now that I can't really just kind of glance over my shoulder and remind myself. Let's see. Lethan Church says, parade around dressed as a Landsknecht, carrying a great sword all the time is the way to live life. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if people wore costumes like that again? And I say costumes because clothing like that again. Actually, if I was talking about aesthetic earlier, if I had my choice for how people should dress, like I kind of wish we'd go back to like the 30s and 40s, where people kind of just generally wore well-tailored suits and had nice hats. Still one of my favorite dress styles. And this is coming from someone who just wears t-shirts most of the time. But I do really like a good suit. AJ Thomas says the cat brought him back from the dead after that lightsaber review accident. That's a deep cut for my channel right there. I would say that lightsaber review is probably one of the easily to miss videos. I would also say that probably my favorite video I ever made on my channel is probably one of my least viewed, and that's the when I made fun of the Washington Monument swords, or the Washington D.C. and the America sword. So I did this whole like monster truck rally fake commercial for it. Still one of my favorite things I ever did. That's a big joke. No one watched it, so. Let's see. When does the anxiety of telling your wife you have 5 more swords coming fade away? I'm well into my collection, but my heart still races after placing an order. Be clear, she's never objected. My wife has never had a problem with it. I never. To be really clear here, I never bought a sword if we couldn't afford it. I very specifically budgeted for swords. A certain amount, certain percentage of my paycheck would come out and go into a separate account that was specifically designated for swords. And that is the method by which I would buy all my weapons. And as long as it was in one space of the house that I had designated, she had no problem with it. And the way my wife puts it is she said that she loves me and she loves that I'm passionate about things, and that if I wasn't passionate about the things that I'm passionate about, then she wouldn't be sure she loved the same person that she did before. So part of what she loves about me is my passion for things like swords, which is a great place to be. I would highly recommend, to get rid of your anxiety, is sit down with your wife and say, hey, I have decided that I really love collecting swords. What do you view as a limit for that? How can we work around that, right? Because I guarantee your wife is more important to you than any sword. So make sure you got that part worked out. Let's see. Wrestling and boxing are good for you in most situations you can find yourself in. True. So is a gun. The very next comment. So is a Glock. Well, there you go. Lathan Church says, wears a trench coat and a top hat every day. Well, there you go. What's your opinion on the Dark Sword Armory Great Sword with a ring guard? I don't have much of an opinion on it. I'm a little bit more tepid on Dark Sword Armory these days. Back when I was doing some reviews of their products, they were at least honest enough with me to get some benefit of the doubt. I feel like they haven't done a lot to fix their problems, and that would drive me to not normally buy their weapons. However, I still really like that one sword that I have from them. In fact, I like it so much I think it's still on my wall. Yeah, it's right over there. So they have made some good swords, but they also have made swords that have broken on me, and that only takes me so far. Meme Maker says, what are my interests besides swords? Filmmaking and films. I love movies. I love the filmmaking process. Guns. Oddly enough, probably most people aren't even aware of that, I would say. And that's mostly, again, because maybe people can't understand sarcasm. I would imagine that some people have actually gotten the impression that I look down on firearms. But I've had guns as long as I have done this channel, as far as I can think back. I've at least had one gun. I have more than one gun now. But I do like firearms. I don't know as much about them as I do swords. I know how to use them, but I'm not a gun nut, as it were. So firearms to me are more of a practical thing. So I have a rifle for the purposes of a rifle. I have pistols for home defense as well as concealed carry. Like I have them for practical reasons, and I view them as very practical objects, very practical tools, right? And as far as I'm concerned, like besides going to the range and shooting the gun, I hope I never have to actually use a gun for its intended purpose ever. I just never want to. I'm not a hunter. I'm not really interested in being a hunter. The day I'm having to be a hunter is also the day the world is ending, right? That I'm having to be a survivalist or something. But yeah. But I'm not. I'm also not much of a gun collector either. Like I have specific guns for a specific purpose, and I don't have a lot of guns. I have a few, and they all have their reason for me owning them. But they are an interest. I do enjoy them. I love video games. I mean, I play a lot of video games when I can. Family. I over the summer I got a little bit, because we've all been in lockdown, right? I got a little bit into gardening. I started learning how to garden, and that has led me into making some plans to actually build a more full garden for next year. I just didn't really have time with a baby, a newborn, to really invest time. But my mother has actually got a massive green thumb. She is really good at gardening, and so I've learned a good bit from her. All right, let's see. When you click the link for my new channel, it only gives you the option to report it. That's weird. I click it, I get to the channel. No one else able to see it? Someone tell me, is anyone else having a problem going to the new channel? Because I've seen new subscribers hitting it just recently, so I have to assume that is from this live stream. But let's see. I want the 600 Nitro Express revolver. I have not seen that. Who's the manufacturer of that revolver? Lethan Church also says it's hard to find a decent great sword. That's probably true. Albion makes some. But if you're looking for a specific design, it can be very difficult. Great swords are expensive to manufacture as well, so that's why it's harder to find them. Let's see. Wyoming Homesteader. Wyoming Homesteader, there you go. See, that's another interesting hobby of mine. I wouldn't call myself a prepper, but I like the concepts of preppers. So I like to mess with and dabble in some of the prepping concepts. So like I have bug out bags, and I like to mess with that. And again, the cyber deck behind me, the entire purpose of that thing is the concept of a big solar flare knocks out all the computers in the world, and now I have to figure out how to survive, and that computer will help me do it, basically. Go watch the video on it. I think it's pretty interesting. ADH dude says, how do you afford both guns and swords? Well, I don't buy a lot of guns because I don't collect them. But the ones I do buy, I tend to choose ones that I think are going to work well for me. So it can be slightly more expensive sometimes. I have a good job too. I mean, honestly, I'm not wanting for money, thankfully. Lathan Church says, arguably collecting swords and like is cheaper and more fun than collecting swords. Or collecting guns, rather. Yeah, I would almost agree with that. I think if I had unlimited money, I would certainly maybe go into collecting guns more. But I find swords more fascinating, so in terms of like the historical significance and all that. Okay. Nicholas has got to hit the hay. Have a good night, sir. Let's see. Yeah, so other people are saying the link is working for them, so I'm not really sure why it's not working for you, Wyoming Homesteader. I apologize that it's not. Go look up, just do a YouTube search for The Division Cyberdeck. The Division as in the video game The Division, and Cyberdeck, Cyberdek, all one word. And you will find my videos by doing that on the other channel. The channel name currently is Gray Fox. That is an old call sign I used to use for flight video games. Let's see. Buy non-GMO seeds so you can get your own seeds. Yes. Getting a lot of the what is it? Heritage seeds, those type of things. Yes. No. I'm aware of that type of aspect, like getting my own seeds. So part of my interest in gardening is actually, and like I said, a little bit of the prepper aspect is my interest is kind of in self-sufficiency. I do like the concepts of self-sufficiency to the extent that one of my favorite TV shows of all time is one from the 70s called Good Neighbors. At least in the U.S., it was called Good Neighbors. I don't remember what it was called in Britain, but it's an old British sitcom, and one of my all-time favorites. If you've never seen Good Neighbors, you need to go watch it. It is such a funny show. It's a comedy, but it's all about a bunch of people living in suburbia decide they want to become self-sufficient and not work a 9 to 5, but rather, work at living life. It's a really great show. Lathan Church says he believes it's Russian or somewhere around that area. A really weird name. 600 Nitro Express Revolver. I'll look it up later. Did you ever get much further in Kingdom Come Deliverance? No, not really. I just didn't have time for video games, honestly. It's a strange hobby, but I collect firearm auction catalogs. Great for reference. All nice pictures. Yeah. RI is the most common I get. Yeah, ROI. RI is Rock Island Auctions. I believe that's the name of it. One of my favorite YouTube channels for firearms is Forgotten Weapons. Really fun channel to watch and really fascinating. And the guy on that channel, whose name escaped me right now, he is very often going to Rock Island auctions. So awesome. All right, I've basically caught the end of the chat again, and we are now at the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. And my daughter is still sleeping, so that's actually really good news for me. Any thoughts on a 20-inch Bowie with a D-guard? It'd be a really good Bowie knife. In fact, I probably wouldn't get a Bowie knife unless it did have like a large D-guard on it. That's the practical nature in me again. Like if I'm gonna get a giant Bowie knife, I'm gonna want one that protects my knuckles, kind of like a trench knife or something. Yeah, Ian. Thank you, AJ. Ian McCullum. That's right. Ian is amazing. Like he's one of those YouTubers that I would love to meet in person. I've got a few that I would just absolutely love to meet in person. He's one of them. Ian's really, really great. Lathan says he's having a Bowie with a D-guard designed and made for him. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, getting your own custom sword is kind of a big deal. I've never actually done it because, again, a lot of my folks end up being on production swords for the purposes of a channel. I've never actually done I've never commissioned a custom. My wife has for me. So, to be clear, I do actually have a sword that was custom designed and made for me from Castile Armory, actually. And it's a fader, not a sword, but... Spam Gun Jesus to bless you with a visit. That would be awesome. I don't know. I would love... If I could collaborate with Ian, that would be amazing. Please don't spam anybody on my behalf. I'm sure that would only just serve to annoy him. Gun Jesus, definitely. He's got a very calming attitude to him, which is what you want in someone who's running a gun channel, honestly. Yeah. Well, I guess the way I put it is Ian is almost like a Bob Ross of firearms, kind of how MCQ bushcraft is like the Bob Ross of bushcraft and wilderness survival. He's another channel I really enjoy. I like the calming channels a lot of times. People who are a little bit more relaxed. Because I'm not that way. Generally speaking, I am not a quiet, relaxed person. So spamming him, yeah. Don't spam Ian. Ian's a great guy. He's doing his thing. Let him do his thing. Yeah, So going back to the what other hobbies I have, yeah, my hobbies are really really varied. Like I've written software. I dabble in electronics. I do I do electronics, computer stuff. I play video games. I do shop type stuff, like making things. Um, I am a collector by nature, so collecting swords is obvious. I collect action figures. There are some certain series of action figures I really like, so collecting toys. Um, Never turned that into a channel really, but I always enjoyed it. I've always just kind of I'm a very, I guess, tactile person. I like things to play with and mess with. And that one really synergizes with my family life now because now I can hand these toys off to my kids and let them play with them as well. And I'm not a collector that is protective of their stuff. So like I'm not keeping like action figures in their packs, right? Open it up, play with it, let my kids play with it. Um, but I also collect things that remind me of things that I love. So I'm not just going to buy things for the sake of buying them. They need to invoke something, and it's very true of swords, right? I would buy a sword because of the story behind it, or because of some aspect of the design that really spoke to me. Same thing is true of toys I buy. I have like big Jurassic Park dinosaurs over there because Jurassic Park is one of my all-time favorite books and films. Um, and so I like dinosaurs, right? I like reading up on science, like as hobbies. Science is always very interesting to me, especially as astronomy. Space is just fascinating to me. Yeah, I've got a large variety of interests, and it's very easy for me to get call it very focused on any one of them. I think most people here are only really ever exposed to the sword side of that, of my personality there. But I actually really like a lot of other things. A Bob Ross of firearms. Can you cut that into a small clip and post it because that's the perfect quote? I'll have to go find it. What was the time code that I said that? I don't know. Lathan Churchill says, "Do I like Berserk?" I'm assuming you're talking about the manga, and yes, Kento Mura, I believe is the guy's name. I really like the Berserk series. In fact, so much that in my library is the new leather-bound volumes that they started producing in English. So, Berserk is not for the faint of heart, though. If you don't like very mature themes, that is not the graphic novel slash manga for you. But I highly recommend it. I really do like it a lot, and that's coming from someone who actually, generally speaking, does not like manga. I like certain anime, but not anime in general. So Berserk is great. I dabble gaming. I've played Souls series, yes, but I'm not like a big Soulsborne style person. The games I play the most these days are nothing to do with medieval themes or swords. They're almost all going to be more modern. I'm a huge fan of The Division. That's why I'm wearing a giant Division shirt right now. Um, I love the Division games. I like the Tom Clancy games in general from that kind of genre. I've Splinter Cell and those type of things I really like. Um, I like really simple to play, kind of get in and get out games. So Rocket League, more recently Fall Guys, something like that is just great fun, right? And that's what I want to do when I'm playing games, have fun. Sometimes Dark Souls or the Soulsborne type games aren't about having fun anymore. So kind of avoid that. Um, oh, is Berserk news on October 9th? I have not been keeping up with it, so I'm curious what that means. um, yeah, I don't know. I can go cut out. I mean, he is the Bob Ross of firearms, though. It is very true. He's very calming. Let's see. Jumpy Killer QX says, I'm comfortable with my empty-handed skills when a situation doesn't call for a gun. No, I agree. I think you should be able to be proficient in protecting yourself and other people. Um, to that end, I think it's important to have multiple layers to your ability to do so. That's my personal opinion on it. That's one of the reasons that I do martial arts outside of, I think it's important to know. But I don't really consider myself a strong martial artist. I teach HEMA, or at least I taught back in the day when I wasn't having kids. But no, I would never actually consider myself to be a strong martial artist, not like a lot of people out there. How about Deus Ex Human Revolution? I have not played that one. I am aware of the Deus Ex series, and I have played some of the earlier ones. But no, I don't think I've played that one. So there's too many games out there. I don't know if you guys know that. There's a lot of games. There's no way to play all the games that's out there. I recognize that some of these games are some of the best games ever made. The ones I've played more recently, let me think, besides like The Division, I have played, do you guys know what Earth Defense Force is? Because Earth Defense Force is seriously one of the best series of games ever. They're janky and awful in terms of like their production, but every bit of it is fun. And it's like Pokemon for ridiculous guns. So you're not just getting like the next assault rifle, but rather you're getting like a rocket launcher that shoots a giant rocket that's the size of a bus that moves half a mile an hour until it hits the thing it's going to hit. And then when it does, it takes out half a city block. Ridiculous things. Ridiculous weapons. Ridiculously fun. Earth Defense Force is seriously one of my favorite games. My brother and I would play that all the time. Couch co-op a lot of times. Now, he lives in the Netherlands now, so I play online with him when I can. Not played the Metro games, actually. I think the reason I don't play the Metro games is I can only take so much dour and serious, and I spend my time doing dour and serious in games like The Division, where everything just seems kind of mildly oppressive, and the Metro games are even more so. I don't know. Life can be oppressive enough, I think. Same thing with the Souls games. I think sometimes I just want a bright, fun game. Hence Rocket League or EDF or Fall Guys or something like that. I'm also much more casual in my gaming since having kids, though, because I just don't have time to sit down and play a game. I could have done it tonight, but I'm doing this instead. Let's see. Last of Us 2, Part 2, loved it. I did Last of Us Part 1. I never did Part 2 because it came out only recently, and I don't have time for long video games. Meme Maker says janky but fun. Yes, it is. It is a great game. EDF is. Morrowind, amazing plot, story, dialogue, but the combat mechanics are really outdated in a funny way. Yes, Morrowind is the only one of the Elder Scrolls games that I ever really spent a ton of time in. All the newer ones are basically more of the same, in my opinion, just slightly more polished graphically, and maybe with more complex AI, but still janky and buggy and all that. Yeah, Morrowind is still to this day, I can find myself humming the Jeremy Soule music from that game. It is so ingrained in my brain. Lathan Church says Doom is a bright, fun game. Yes, Doom from id Software in the early 90s is absolutely a bright, fun game. If you like D&D, Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 are great. Yes, I used to play a little bit of Divinity. What's amazing about that game series is the complexity of the mechanics, and how much you can do with it, and how that kind of, to Anthony's point, kind of mirrors D&D, where part of the fun of D&D is anything goes. Like you can come up with any solution to any problem, and in many ways, the Divinity games are like that, which I think is cool. But again, the idea of pouring hundreds of hours into a game is really difficult for me. So a lot of the, especially fantasy RPGs, are not what I can do much anymore. I have to kind of avoid those. And if I'm going to again spend a lot of time playing video games, it's probably going to be something like The Division. The Division is easily one of my all-time favorite ongoing games. You know, live service. I hate that live service, but I do really like those games. They really play well with my interests in terms of like survivalism and interesting scenarios. And I'm a Tom Clancy fan in general, like book, movie, like just the kind of geopolitical thriller type stuff. And something about the Division really spoke to me. So it's a great game series, and I really enjoy it. So if I'm going to spend a lot of time in a game, that's where it's going to be. Otherwise, I dabble. Baldur's Gate, yes. I played Baldur's Gate back in the day. They have re-released Baldur's Gate so many different times in so many different forms. But yes, those are great games. A long game is just a series of short games if you're determined. It's true, but I like variety. It would be like saying, playing a long game. I guess the way I would like it is, if you're going to eat a cheeseburger for lunch and dinner every day, you're going to get bored of it really quickly. Yeah, and, Warband. So games like Chivalry, Warband. Again, the medieval games are. I kind of just burned out on them. I did For Honor, and I think that was really the last medieval game that I played. Kind of all the way through. How about modding Fallout or Elder Scrolls and something completely goofy or stupid? I also hate the whole let's all make multiplayer because it makes money. It's it's the reason that good story is dead. Yeah, it can be. Again, I'll speak about the Division again. One of the reasons I like the Division is that I feel like their story is told in a indirect way that is really interesting. I did actually mod Oblivion. I played around with modding. Like I said, I have a lot of interest. Programming and modding is one of them. And I did mod a little bit of Elder Scrolls back. I think I spent more time modding that game than I did ever playing it, which is kind of odd. But yeah, Fallout games are great. I love the Fallout series. I have not played Fallout 4 or 76. I've played all the other ones, and I mean all the other ones. Again, maybe I like that kind of apocalyptic survival type genre, as long as it's not overly oppressive. And one of the things I like about the Fallout series is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Whereas something like Metro Exodus absolutely does, right? Or Stalker, the Stalker series. Yeah. Mordhau is glorious. Yeah, I've watched some gameplay of that one. There's something about first-person sword fighting games that it frustrates me. I don't know what it is. Chivalry, Mordhau. I never got to play Mordhau, but it's good. Let's see. Currently making a game for class. It's like classic horror adventure game, like Scratches and Darkfall. Yeah. So Lathan Church, I'm going to assume then that you're doing some sort of software degree. I actually have a degree in software engineering that I don't use at all, but I have a degree in it. And one of the things I did was make a text adventure game for our class one time. It was fun. Fallout 4 is good. 76 blows. Yeah, I've heard 76 is awful. And the thing is, when they announced 76, I was all in. I was like, dude, multiplayer Fallout sounds amazing. And then I'm glad I never even started it, honestly. Among Us is a game I'm currently playing a lot. Among Us is the game that I am watching on YouTube a lot. I've gotten into, what is it, Disguised Toast, I think is his name, as a streamer. When watching his stuff, Jacksepticeye, I've been watching him play some of it. That's a really fun one to watch people play and watch their kind of supercuts of, especially since I just probably won't have the chance to play it. Same thing is actually kind of true for Fall Guys. It's a fun one just to watch people play. Did you try Outer Worlds? I did not play it. Digital effects animation. I now hate drawing. Digital effects is fun. I've learned a good bit about visual effects. I am nowhere near the level of Cord or Crew or anything like that, but I love doing that. VR sword fighting is where it's at. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do that, and I have an Oculus Quest right here at my kind of off to the side here that I've yet to get to play some of these games on. But I do plan on playing some of those. I think it works better. The biggest problem is that when you know how to sword fight, it frustrates you that there's not something that forces your sword away from you. That's the real thing that would have to be solved for a sword fighting VR game. Is how do you force the sword out of someone's hand or off to the side, right? How do you get them off center? But that's me being a HEMA nerd, right? So 76 isn't nearly as bad as people say it. It's actually really fun. I forgot it's multiplayer a lot of time. I think the criticism for 76 has more to do with how it was. I know it was really bad when it launched. And I think most people are frustrated that it was more about it was missing things that were promised and they still haven't delivered on. And of course, when you spend $60 on a game and then they nickel and dime you with microtransactions on top of that, yeah. Did you enjoy Kingdom Come Deliverance? I loved it. Spent 500 plus hours. The time I spent with it, I did enjoy. I did not spend very much time with it, unfortunately. I've watched videos of people playing it and some of the stuff that goes on. I think it's an amazing game. And I wish there was more game studios out there like Warhorse making games like that. The animation part sucks my soul. I hope everyone has a great night. Love these chill streams. Catch y'all later. All right, later, Lathan. Yeah, I'm gonna do more of these chill streams. I need chill. So, problem with game companies, they need to build in DLC and microtransactions. Not all of them. Not all of them do. And some of the ones that do can do so in ways that just don't impact the game. I'm not opposed to microtransactions in certain scenarios, but I am more likely than not going to take a stand against them. If a game is using them, I will more likely than not quit playing the game. So, I think there's a few exceptions to that rule with games that I play, but it is generally true. Once microtransactions rule everything, I tend to be less interested. Now, if a game is a free-to-play game, like truly free-to-play, where you could play it and never spend a dime, and you're not at like a complete disadvantage, I'm more okay with microtransactions as long as they aren't abusive. And that's the one thing I'm not a fan of with microtransactions is the abusive nature of them. All right, I'm not even going to try, Augustus, to say everything you're saying. Am I waiting for anything coming up, looking out for Halo and Cyberpunk? Yes and yes. I love Halo, and I never played Halo 5. I don't know what it was. It just didn't catch me. But I played all the other Halo games. Halo Infinite looks interesting. I like the idea of an open world Halo game. See where that goes. Cyberpunk, absolutely. I cannot wait to play Cyberpunk 2077. That looks great. Yeah. I actually talked a bit about it. So Ian Langsev asked me what I think about current Dark Sword Army products. He's seen the things before, but he has wonder if I have a different opinion. My opinion hasn't necessarily changed that much. I will say I'm a little bit more tepid on them. I talked a bit about it actually earlier in the stream. I just I can't really. I'm not really probably ever going to go buy a Dark Sword Armory sword at this point. I've bought what I was going to buy from them, and I probably won't buy anymore. Cold Steel products suck, says Augustus. I can't even find their website anymore. Are they dead? You can't find their website anymore? Really? Well, so I will say that Cold Steel, generally speaking, their swords at least, are made by Windless now, so they might as well be one and the same in many ways. The only difference being that Cold Steel designs their stuff, whereas windlass and museum replicas are trying maybe a bit more to have a little more accuracy, I guess. I'm not a big cold steel person, honestly. So I have like a few of their swords, and they're the ones that are good. And I think most people know from watching my channel, I have a lot of windlass swords, mostly because they are inexpensive swords that are still functional, and I can get a greater variety from them. That's why I have a lot of their stuff. But generally speaking, like if you always ask me if you only buy like one sword, what are you going to buy? It's never going to be one of them. Let's see. Warhorse Studios develop a game with Rockstar Games now. That would be great, wouldn't it? Yes, I still live, Woods Lore. It's true. To get Viking swords? I mean, you mean besides Temple? You can get Viking swords from a lot of places. There custom makers out there can make some really beautiful Viking period swords. Matt Easton recently mentioned that Windows will be doing away with the secondary bevel. Looking forward to seeing the company improve their stuff. I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Windlass is, if they are anything, they're at least open to feedback and look to improve their products. A.J. Thompson says, good night. So good night. Let's see. Someone from Chile, Misha Torres. I have some friends and coworkers from Chile. So welcome. Say again, it's amazing someone from Chile is watching this stream right now. Whereabouts are you from, Misha? What area of Chile? Well, I hope everyone hasn't been too bored of watching 3 hours of me close rings here. I hope this has at least been okay for the people who've kind of come on and off over time. We think our peak was about 30 concurrent viewers. I don't think we ever got more than that, which is honestly great for me, just putting a stream out there randomly one Saturday night. Do I plan to do something like that Rohan banner or something else? Just got serious. You should go back earlier in the stream. Okay, so Santiago. All right, cool. I almost traveled to Chile once for work, and then it didn't happen. So I was almost there one time. One day, maybe I'll go there. Yeah, so you asked me about my what I'm making with Chainmail, and since I talked about it earlier on the stream, you'll pull it up. See if I can't find it. It's gonna be hard for me to find again, I'm afraid. Let's see. Go back in my history a bit. Because I was showing off some of the stuff I had made. And then I quit. So let's see if I can't find it again. Pulled up, that way I can show you some of what I've made in the chainmail type stuff. Let's see. Alright, here we go. So real quick, chainmail again, since it's what I'm doing right now. This was a banner I made. Very, very big banner. I have a better picture of it, but I've made hauberks, horsemen's hauberks. I've made little inlays and all sorts of stuff, but this banner is definitely the biggest thing I've ever made. You can see some detail of it here. But yeah, once this stream gets posted, wherever it gets posted, you go back and watch. Yeah, I did a little bit more of a deeper dive on things I've made out of mail. But no, I'm not going to make another big banner like that ever again. I had played around with the idea of doing something like a Rohan banner or things like that, but it's such a big proposition. And it's expensive as well. Like, it's not cheap to do that. Part of why I'm making, or why I'm making things with rings right now is these are rings I have on hand. I've had for a while, for a couple of years, and so I can make something with it and not have to pay money to get more rings. All right. Well, that is a 3-hour stream at this point. I might go a little bit longer, but probably not a lot, because I really expect my daughter to wake up any moment here for a midnight meal. So, anybody have any last questions or thoughts before we say goodnight? I have to wait for that to hit the stream, of course. It takes a while. Midnight meals suck. It makes people fat. Well, that's what you want for a baby to be. You want them to be fat. Duran Delight says, remember back in the day I had interest, was doing some documentary type stuff, still planning on pursuing that. Yeah, I had the Historia series. I do think I would want to do more stuff like that, definitely. Spend more time doing more production stuff. Seen the Albion Warwick, and if so, what's my thought? Someone mentioned it earlier back on the earlier in the stream, and I asked for a link, but they didn't have one. Apparently, it was posted somewhere on Facebook. I didn't have time to look at it, and no, I have not seen it yet, but I'll go take a look, and I'm sure I'll have thoughts on it. Any new sword reviews coming out? None have currently been produced. You can expect some stuff in the future. It will take time, so please, bear with me. I'm also working on the other channel. The other channel is non-sword medieval related things, and that other channel is going to actually be where I spend some more of my time right now just to get more content on it. But I also have more content in mind for it right now. But I'm not abandoning this channel. It's just, it's going to get less content over time. So Cat That Got Away, just that's how I've been for the past 2 years. Rewatched all my videos a month ago. I've been great. I mean, having kids is great. That's where a lot of my time and energy has gone, in just raising kids and working and raising kids and working. But having a family is easily the best thing in the world, and so that's where it's all been. I've been watching the channel. I've been commenting on, I've been replying to comments. I haven't completely abandoned anything, but I've not produced anything. I'll plug the new channel one last time here. I have a new channel that is for videos that I'll be doing not related to medieval topics or sword reviews or anything like that. It's currently it's just a cyber deck build, some computer and electronic wiring stuff. Check it out. I do think it's interesting. I know it may not be for everyone. It's why I'm not posting it on my existing channel. I created a new channel that will have to survive on its own, and I'm okay with that. But it will take some away from the Medieval Review channel. That's okay. I don't want to burn out either way, and so the content for both these channels is going to just kind of come out when I'm able. It's not really going to be on any set schedule. Have I been practicing, continue practicing HEMA lately? No. Myself and the other person who primarily I practiced with, because I live in the middle of nowhere, we both had kids, so that really put the big kibosh on practicing. We have been talking about getting back into it recently, but it's all contingent on children. I'm glad everyone's enjoying the stream. I appreciate everyone hanging out. How long did that mail take to make? I'm working on a dome of my own. Well, the big banner took 6 months, nearly 8 hours a day, every day. All right. Thanks for the stream. Love my videos. Love the video about art and reviewed paintings with medieval themes. If I recall correctly, talking about Edmund Layton. Thoughts on doing that kind of content in the future. If I do, it'll probably be on my other channel, unless it is medieval related. Anything medieval related is probably going to end up on this channel. I did actually, oddly, Misha, I did talk about art just a little while ago. We actually got back into that topic of Edmund Layton and Frederick Burton earlier in the stream. So go back and watch the earlier parts of the stream. With that, everyone, that is over 3 hours. I cannot believe I went 3 hours. Honestly, next time I'll have water here so I can actually not start losing my voice like I think I am. I'm also surprised that my daughter slept for 3 hours. That is some sort of small miracle that never happens. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It looks like there's one last question that Augustus gets in before I call quits on the stream. He said, I have a question. You have a sword with you. Which one do you prefer? I've answered this before, actually. Not because it's like my preference, but because I'm a practical person. If I had to have one sword, it would be a long sword because I know how to use it the best. So yeah, long sword would always be my go-to, just because I know how to use it better than any other sword that I own in terms of a style. So yeah. All right, cool. All right, I will do more streams in the future. Streams are easy content, honestly, and I think I'll just do more of these because it is easy. So awesome. Oh, Augustus said he meant type as in typology. I'm not sure what you mean there, Augustus. So, all right. Well, that's it, everyone. But I will, again, I will do more streams in the future. Keep an eye out. I will announce them in the future. This one was actually to make sure I had the streaming software set up right and kind of just dabble in it. I'll try to do something a little bit better in the future. To answer your question, guys, if you're talking about topology, it's whatever the Albion Ringek is. That kind of pointed longsword I really like. Cool. Yep, and Fraser says, don't forget Elizabeth Moon Parkinsonarian books. I'll do a search for it right after I close out the stream. Awesome. Cool. Have a good night, everyone. Yeah, I'll talk